Chapter 2686. At a complete advantage, none of the leaders dared to object to Jin Hong's orders. That was not only because of his status as the successor of a Grand Exalt. More importantly, it was because they had received orders from their seniors to follow all of Jin Hong's arrangements during this expedition to the world of the fallen beast. The several 100,000 people began to move. They determined the direction and slowly approached the barrier 100 kilometers away. The power of the world of the fallen beast was the strongest within the barrier. As a result, the life-devouring beasts would never dare to come close. However, the power of the world would become thin outside the barrier. That would be the territory of the life-devouring beasts, which would throw the group into constant danger. Even though everyone was a godhood cultivator and could cross 100 kilometers in the blink of an eye, the distance seemed extremely long right now. Especially when they grew closer and closer to the barrier, some of the prodigies from peak organizations could not help but tremble. Their fear towards the life-devouring beasts had already flooded their minds, causing them to move more and more slowly the closer they were to the barrier. Oi, you clans! Keep up with the pace. If you fall behind, you might get annihilated when you face the life-devouring beasts with your strength alone. A god king at the front looked back at the few large groups that had almost fallen behind the majority completely and immediately laughed aloud. Derision appeared in his eyes when he saw the pale faces of the leaders of the groups. Out of the several dozen leaders, some of them had emerged through blood and death, having undergone devastating trials. They had forged a steel-like willpower, so entering the two-world mountains obviously did not frighten them. However, there were also those who were like snowflakes. Through the abundant resources of their clans, they had reached God King in an extremely short amount of time, but they rarely came close to death through trials and tribulations. Now that they were here, facing the threat of the life-devouring beasts, they were obviously scared witless. What the hell was the Great Elder thinking, making me follow all of Jin Hong's orders? Our Lance Empire is an everlasting empire that has existed since the times of antiquity after all. I'm a mighty prince of the Lance Empire with brilliant talent. I reached God King in just 800 years, and my future accomplishments will be immeasurable, so why must I lay down my life with Jin Hong of the Dire Wolf clan now? Jin Hong, you actually forced me into this. I'll never spare you. Humph. Does Jin Hong really think he's invincible after obtaining a Grand Exalt's legacy, that he can cross the two-world mountains? He probably hasn't witnessed the horror of life-devouring beasts before. I would like to see how he dies. We should be careful. Once we leave the barrier and come across life-devouring beasts, leave Jin Hong to stop them. He thinks he's so great with his legacy from a Grand Exalt. He'll get what he has been asking for soon. Remember, do not face the life-devouring beasts head-on when you come across them. Let Jin Hong stop them. Once Jin Hong dies, we'll retreat back into the barrier immediately and return to the spirit's world. Many of the leaders came up with plans. The light in their eyes all flickered as they stared at Jin Hong at the very front. They gritted their teeth in resentment, but they dared not show it. Once we leave the barrier, we'll be in the territory of the life-devouring beasts. We'll face the danger of attacks at all times. Yang Yutian, you must stick close to me later on. Don't lose your life here, He Chanqian communicated with Jian Chen sternly in the Heavenly Crane Clan's group. Excluding the sacrificial soldiers, Jian Chen was the only god king aside from He Chanqian within the Heavenly Crane Clan's group. As a result, He Chanqian clearly attached great importance to Jian Chen. Everyone arrived before the barrier very quickly. Hovering before it, Jin Hong glanced past the mountains outside. He showed no fear, directly stepping through it. After him were the people from the Dire Wolf clan, ranging close to 10,000 in number. Following them were the Sun family, Man family, Empire Lotus Sword sect, and around another dozen leaders. They crossed through the barrier fearlessly with the people under them as well. They all gave off vigorous battle intent, clearly ready to enter a bloodbath with the life-devouring beasts. Let's go! He Chanqian called out and crossed through the barrier with her group as well. Close to half of the entire group remained within the barrier. They gazed at the mountains shrouded by gray mist fearfully. They hesitated about stepping through the barrier. Haha, just the life-devouring beasts have frightened you so much. Cowards like you lot should stay in your respective families obediently and live out the rest of your lives easily. You have no right to set foot in the world of the fallen beast. A prodigy outside the barrier looked at the frightened people inside and snickered fearlessly. Isn't that the prodigy of the Chu family, Chu Jie? You're not injured, are you? Why have you become so pale? And your legs, why are they trembling? You're a god king, for God's sake. Can't you even stand properly? Added another prodigy. He stared at Xueqi and ridiculed him. He was the prodigy of the Hai family, Xueqi. The Hai family and Chu family had past grievances, so now that the opportunity to ridicule Xueqi had presented itself, he obviously could not let it slip. Humph. Xueqi, I'll let your arrogance slide for now. I would like to see how you die when the life-devouring beasts come, Xueqi said in resentment. Faced with Xueqi's mockery, he could only cross through the barrier reluctantly. Soon, the other prodigies inside the barrier could not endure the insults either after hesitating for a while. Faced with various pressures, they all crossed through the barrier. All the prodigies who had come to the world of the fallen beast had left the barrier now. They stood within the two world mountains dominated by life-devouring beasts. Oh no! The senses of my soul are suppressed. What is this power? My senses are less than 1/100th of their usual capacity. A cry rang out. The senses of my soul are suppressed as well. God damn it, I can only expand my senses to a range of 10 kilometers. The senses of my soul are completely useless. It has been firmly locked within me. Jian Chen frowned in response to all these cries. He immediately expanded the senses of his soul as well and discovered that even though they were affected, he could still reach a range of 1,000,000 kilometers. A range of 1,000,000 kilometers was more than enough in the two world mountains. He could investigate the surrounding situations beforehand and discover any dangers. It's because of the gray mist. Who knows where the mist comes from? You can't actually disperse it. It looks like the mist is anything but ordinary. Jian Chen discovered the reason for his suppressed senses of the soul very soon. He did not devote too much attention to the mist. Instead, he began to observe the life-devouring beasts. The senses of his soul had already reached 1,000,000 kilometers away. However, he had no idea how vast the mountains were, as he still could not find the boundary. However, many life-devouring beasts appeared in the senses of his soul. The life-devouring beasts varied in size and shape, appearing in all sorts of forms. Some looked like tigers or leopards, while others seemed like ancient beasts. There were even some that existed as vegetation, fusing with the surroundings perfectly. As a result, it was difficult to discover them. However, no matter what form they took, the presence they gave off and the pulsing of energy was identical. There's a life-devouring beasts rapidly approaching this place 20 kilometers away. 25 kilometers away, there's a life-devouring beast in the shape of a huge tree, several hundred meters in height. Jian Chen found everything with the senses of his soul. Chapter 2687. An initial clash. The life-devouring beast 20 kilometers away is shaped like a leopard, except it has 6 legs. It has clearly discovered us and is directly heading in our direction, thought Jian Chen. The powerful senses of his soul discovered the strength of the life-devouring beast with perfect precision. It was roughly equal to a late-over god. It posed no threat to the group. However, this life-devouring beast moved extremely quickly. With its strength equivalent to a late-over god, it could cross 100 kilometers in an instant, so 20 kilometers only took it the blink of an eye. Instantly, the 6-legged, leopard-shaped life-devouring beast appeared before everyone. The senses of everyone's souls were suppressed within the two world mountains. Even some of the god kings could only expand their senses to a range of 10 kilometers, which was nowhere near enough for them to receive an early warning. By the time they could sense the life-devouring beast, it would have crossed the 10 kilometers already and appeared before them. Roar! Immediately, the life-devouring beast produced a beast-like roar. Its eyes shone with a muddy, bloodthirsty light as it directly lunged towards the cultivators nearest to it. Be careful, there's a life-devouring beast. It's a life-devouring beast. The life-devouring beasts have come. The life-devouring beasts have come. Don't panic. Attack together. The cultivators only reacted when the life-devouring beast had already attacked. Their faces changed drastically, and all of them cried out in surprise and fear. Even the god kings among them became extremely stern. They seemed very nervous. Immediately, over 100 people struck out together. There were over-gods and a few god king leaders. Even over a dozen of the sacrificial soldiers had struck out together. All of the attacks formed a blanket of colorful lights that surged towards the life-devouring beast mercilessly. Oh no, my life force has already begun to leak away. The life-devouring beast has already begun to devour my life force. At the moment they launched their attacks, a few gods among the group called out in fear. The life-devouring beast had yet to attack them. However, when they were a certain distance away from it, their life force would leak away uncontrollably, surging towards the life-devouring beast as strands of energy. Having appeared out of nowhere, the life-devouring beast actually faced all the attacks fearlessly. It suddenly made a turn in the air and lunged in a different direction, dodging everyone's attacks and invading the group instantly. It was like a wolf among a flock of sheep, frightening the surrounding cultivators to run all over the place as they screamed in fear. At the same time, a large amount of life force leaked away from the surrounding gods, and all of it gathered towards the life-devouring beast. Gods were unable to retain control over their life force in the presence of the life-devouring beast. Even a few of the weaker overgods suffered the same fate. However, their life force did leak away at an evidently slower pace. Retreat! Don't approach the life-devouring beast! A bellow rang out, and sword chi surged in the distance. A strand of sharp sword chi formed a lotus of great detail and tore through the air. The prodigy from the Empire Lotus Sword Sect had launched an attack. At the same time, the life-devouring beast opened its huge mouth and directly chomped down on a god. The god screamed miserably. His body withered away at an unbelievable pace, as if it had been sucked dry. He was reduced to a bag of bones. The god had died then and there. His life force had been completely devoured, and the life-devouring beast became slightly stronger. Bang! Only now did the lotus sword chi land on the life-devouring beast. With a rumble, the sword chi exploded, forming lotus petals that sliced away at the life-devouring beast's body. The life-devouring beast trembled violently. The sword chi unleashed carnage within its body, ravaging its life force. The life-devouring beast produced a howl of pain. However, it did not die. Its tremendous life force battled the sword chi, forcing it to rapidly weaken. In the surroundings, the various overgods and god-kings used this opportunity to attack once more. This time, 200 attacks rained in at the same time, landing mercilessly on the life-devouring beast. Boom! The life-devouring beast was unable to dodge this time. With a deafening sound, it was blasted into pieces. The life-devouring beast did not bleed. It only possessed a tremendous presence of life, which seemed to be equivalent to blood. The chaotic surroundings immediately settled down after the life-devouring beast's death. Everyone pointed and murmured at the corpse of the life-devouring beast. Some people were pale, still stricken with fear, while others were relieved and disdainful towards the corpse. That's a life-devouring beast. It's nothing much at all. We crushed it to pieces as soon as we met it. The rumors describe the life-devouring beasts to be so terrifying, yet now that I look at it, it's clearly an exaggeration. These life-devouring beasts are no big deal. Don't you underestimate the life-devouring beast. Didn't you see how our life force began to leak away uncontrollably as soon as it approached us? That's because you're too weak. Your weakness makes the life-devouring beast appear powerful. Many people discussed among themselves. All the leaders had arrived there as well. They opened up a clearing among the people and collected the remains of the life-devouring beast and studied it in their hands. Many of them were stern. This life-devouring beast was only equivalent to an overgod, yet it could survive my lotus explosion sword chi. If it were not for the sheer amount of attacks, killing the life-devouring beast would have taken quite the effort, even for me, the leader of the Empire Lotus Sword Sect said sternly. He did not celebrate over the death of the life-devouring beast. Instead, he was solemn. The might of Brother Chongshang's Lotus Explosion Sword Chi is shocking. Even other early god kings cannot withstand its power without a powerful cultivation method and battle skill. Yet this life-devouring beast could last for so long as a mere overgod. It even had the ability to oppose the attack. These life-devouring beasts really are very powerful. They really live up to the rumor of being difficult to deal with, another leader added sternly. The most terrifying part about the life-devouring beasts is their ability to devour life force. If the difference in strength is overly large, just being in their presence will drain away life force. Fortunately, it was only equivalent to an overgod this time. If a late god-king life-devouring beast appeared, we would probably be forced to flee. Let alone fighting it, we would lose control of our life force just by standing within a certain distance from it. It's said that there are countless godhood life-devouring beasts in the two-world mountains, and the most terrifying fact is that there are even primordial realm life-devouring beasts. As soon as they heard that, Everyone's faces changed drastically. If they were outside, they would even be able to face off against infinite primes with so many people, as they could work together by creating formations. However, facing the terrifying ability of life-devouring beasts, even if they created a powerful killing formation, they had no confidence in stopping a primordial realm life-devouring beast. These remains are fantastic materials for some pills, so stow them away. Let's set off quickly. We mustn't waste time here. We need to leave as quickly as possible, said Jin Hong. Even though he was the successor of a Grand Exalt and possessed extremely great battle prowess, he was unable to relax at a time like this either. Chapter 2688. Difficult progress. The remains of the life-devouring beast were split into several dozen portions and handed to the leader of each organization. Life-devouring beasts were an extremely rare type of organism because they only existed within the world of the fallen beast. Moreover, any single part of their remains possessed extremely powerful life force. This life force could not be directly absorbed by cultivators. However, they were fantastic materials for various god-tier pills. As a result, the remains of life-devouring beasts might not possess much value within the world of the fallen beast, but they would be valued at several dozen times, or even hundreds of times, in the saints' world. Due to the limitations on cultivation, people who could refine the remains of life-devouring beasts into pills were basically mythical existences. That was why it was not a resource exploited in the world of the fallen beasts. However, it would be a completely different story in the saints' world. In the saints' world, the remains of life-devouring beasts would be items that powerful cultivators or strong organizations would fight over. As a result, all the leaders of the groups were rather pleased when they obtained these remains. The two-world mountains may be dangerous, but it's also a way to get rich. If I collect enough remains when I return to my clan, it will be a service of great merit. I will definitely be rewarded personally by the great elders. It will give me a basis for when I fight for the position of patriarch in the future and increase my chances at success. A few prodigies smiled to themselves. Even some of the prodigies who were initially afraid of the life-devouring beasts felt their fear subside slightly as they looked at the remains they held. Afterwards, everyone reorganized their groups and set off once again. No one showed any interest towards the god who had died in the mouth of the life-devouring beast. Jian Chen was the only exception. He arrived before the god's corpse that had its life force drained and was reduced to a bag of bones, and the light in his eyes flickered. A god's life force was completely drained away in just a few seconds. That life-devouring beast had such a great devouring ability. Jian Chen was secretly surprised. He could tell with a single glance that not only had the cultivator lost all of his life force, but even his soul had dispersed. Let alone godhood cultivators, even the weaker origin realm cultivators could have their souls survive upon the destruction of their bodies. They could subsequently rebuild their bodies. However, after this god had his life force drained, even his soul did not remain. Can the life-devouring beasts not only devour life force but also souls? Jian Chen thought. By now, the group had already set off again. The dead god was abandoned in the wilderness with no one to take care of his corpse. With a wave of his hand, a sharp sword chi immediately shot out, creating a deep pit in the ground. Afterwards, he waved his hand again, and a gust of wind blew the corpse into the pit, burying it there. Only after doing all that did he turn around to leave, catching up to the main group and returning to He Chanqian's side. Yang Yutian, this is the Two-World Mountains. The true danger of the Two-World Mountains has yet to appear, so I don't wish for you to fall behind. The senses of the soul are greatly limited here. Once you fall behind, no one will come to save you, He Chanqian said coldly as soon as Jian Chen returned to her side. She clearly knew what Jian Chen had gone to do. She said emotionlessly, if you want to emerge from the Two-World Mountains alive, you must forsake your benevolence, as a moment of benevolence can doom you for eternity and trap you here forever. I obviously wouldn't joke around with my life. You don't need to worry at all, Miss Chen. Jian Chen broke into a chuckle. However, as soon as he finished speaking, something happened. A huge tree nearby seemed to come to life at that moment. Thousands of branches rained down, stabbing towards the group of people like sharp swords at lightning speed. Immediately, cries rang out in the surroundings. Several hundred cultivators were pierced by the branches. Their life force was drawn away by the branches at a terrifying rate, deposited into the main trunk of the tree. At that moment, the several hundred cultivators lost all of their life force. Even their souls were not spared. They died. After draining all these cultivators of their life force, the energy within the tree suddenly swelled. Its strength was actually forcefully raised to a higher level. It had reached God King from peak over God. This is a life-devouring beast. Oh no, it has actually broken through. Kill it. A great bellow rang out. The leader of the Empire Lotus Sword sect was the bravest. His presence roared, and he killed his way over first. Against the God King life-devouring beast, he did not hold back at all, unleashing his full strength. At the same time, all the other cultivators in the surroundings struck out as well. Various attacks flooded towards the tree-like life-devouring beast. Facing all these attacks, the life-devouring beast took defensive measures. It used its tremendous life force to conjure up a powerful barrier around itself. At the same time, a powerful suction force appeared. Immediately, all the gods and overgods within a radius of 3,000 meters lost control of their life force, which rapidly gathered towards the life-devouring beast. What a powerful ability! Even the life force within me is stirred. I almost lost control. Yang Yutian, all the guards, attack! Kill the life-devouring beast immediately! Hikian Kina called out, and the laws of ice descended. The surrounding temperature abruptly dropped, and large snowflakes began to fall. She formed a seal with both hands and icicles radiating with coldness condensed in the air. They shot towards the tree with coldness so terrifying that they seemed to be able to freeze up the space there. These life-devouring beasts don't seem to be particularly clever. They seem to be moving on instincts alone, or they would be able to understand that with so many cultivators here, they won't be able to survive even if they can kill a few of us, thought Jian Chen. He did not stand aside in this. With a flip of his hand, a supreme quality saint artifact sword appeared, and he produced several strands of sword chi with a few swings. However, the strength he displayed was only a regular early god king's. Boom, boom, boom. With consecutive rumbles, the life-devouring beast's barrier of life force shook and dimmed. However, the life-devouring beast actually managed to withstand all of these attacks alone, even when many of them originated from god kings. They failed to kill it off. At this moment, a resplendent spear of light pierced through the sky and stabbed the dim barrier with great force. The life-devouring beast's barrier was already nearing destruction. Now that it had to withstand the attack from the spear, it immediately crumbled. The spear continued onwards and stabbed into the life-devouring beast's body with a god king's pulse of energy. The wielder of the spear was a prodigy from the Sun family. He seemed to be around 40 years of age, a middle-aged man. However, he was extremely courageous at this moment. He wielded a spear in one hand while both of his feet remained planted in the ground. He suddenly jolted and called out, "Mountain-splitting spear, crack!" With that single word, cracks rapidly expanded from where the spear had stabbed into the life-devouring beast. Pieces of wood erupted. However, as soon as the cracks appeared, they closed up due to the life-devouring beast's powerful life force. Such a small wound was unable to pose any threat to it at all. Even more god kings arrived before the life-devouring beast, encircling it. The life-devouring beast's regenerative powers were very powerful, making it almost impossible to kill. However, no matter how quickly it could heal, it could not rival so many people. 10 seconds later, the life-devouring beast was unable to avoid death. It was smashed into pieces by the god kings, reduced to thousands of splinters. Only when the life-devouring beast died did the overgods and gods become relieved. Before a god king life-devouring beast, they did not even have the right to approach it, let alone fight. They were as helpless as they could be. We actually lost 800 people from this alone. We can't let this continue, or we'll lose more than half of everyone before long, a god king said with an ugly expression as he looked at the cultivators who had fallen to the life-devouring beast. Gods are completely useless within the two-world mountains, and the assistance that overgods can provide is basically non-existent as well. I would advise us to stow them away in the divine halls we carry with us, or the weaker cultivators will just become sustenance for the life-devouring beasts to become stronger. I agree. We can't let everyone die here. Once we get to 100 Saint City, there are more matters for them to attend to. That's right. The place where we can really use them is the 100 Saint City, not the two-world mountains. Let's get them all to stay in the divine halls. It'll save them from creating trouble. Everyone reached an agreement very soon. The leaders all produced their divine halls and let in all of their gods and overgods. With that, the size of the group suddenly shrunk, going from several 100,000 to a few tens of thousands in an instant. They were now a tenth of their original size. All of the people outside were god kings. Of course, over 99% of them were sacrificial soldiers raised through 100 tribulations god king pills. The actual prodigies who had cultivated to god king amounted to less than 1%. As a matter of fact, some of the leaders were not even god kings themselves, so they ended up hiding within their divine halls as well. They gave the divine halls to Jin Hong to keep. With that, Jin Hong now carried over 20 divine halls on him. However, he also obtained the authority over the sacrificial god kings from those organizations as well. Every organization had brought several hundred to over 1,000 sacrificial soldiers. As a result, the sacrificial god kings under Jin Hong's command now amounted to over 20,000. Chapter 2689. Hidden Issues. Damn it! I never thought these insignificant figures that are merely gods and overgods would receive such special treatment. Jin Hong is a supreme prodigy who gained the legacy of a grand exalt. Without a single doubt, he's the strongest among us. Those people hid in divine halls held by Jin Hong, so not only can they avoid the risk of fighting the life-devouring beasts outside, but it'll even save them from the burden of traveling. The prodigy from the Chu family, Xueqi, was both jealous and envious as he looked at all the divine halls with Jin Hong. Under Jin Hong's protection, they're more likely to survive than staying outside here. Damn it. If I had known this earlier, I would have broken through to God King later. That way, I too can hide within a divine hall and wait comfortably. There would have been no need for me to take risks outside, Xueqi thought. He looked at the divine hall that held thousands of gods and overgods in his own hand and sighed to himself. From the encounter with the tree-shaped life-devouring beast, they had understood that life-devouring beasts did not only take the forms of animals. They could appear as plants as well. If the life-devouring beasts hid well, they would struggle to discover them even if they were nearby. As a result, they had to constantly be on guard against sudden attacks from life-devouring beasts. Not only did they have to keep their guard raised constantly, but it would even become exhausting after a long period of time. All of them would become tired. It was nowhere near as comfortable as remaining in a divine hall. As a result, Xueqi basically wished he was one of the people who had entered the divine halls. There were quite a lot of people who shared the same thought as Xueqi among the God King prodigies. From their clashes with the life-devouring beasts, they saw the cultivators who had fallen to the beasts, which made them feel great fear. Most of these prodigies were afraid of death. They were snowflakes, nowhere near as courageous and fearless as the prodigy from the Empire Lotus Sword sect and the others. Young Master Jin Hong, I've only broken through to God King recently. I haven't consolidated my cultivation completely, so I won't be of any help against life-devouring beasts. Why don't you let me enter a divine hall as well? I'll leave all the God King gods under me to your command, young Master Jin Hong. At this moment, the leader of an organization arrived before Jin Hong and spoke meekly, a little like he was sucking up to Jin Hong. His eyes expressed his desire to enter a divine hall. The God King's guards he spoke of were naturally the sacrificial soldiers raised through 100 tribulations God King pills. Guang Wanhua, you're a mighty God King no different from us, yet you're so afraid of death. The Scarlet Light clan should be ashamed for having a descendant like you, said the prodigal God King from the Sun family. He was mocking him. Guang Manhua became completely flushed from that, yet he felt powerless, as most of the God Kings who remained outside were early God Kings, the same as him. As a matter of fact, some of them had even broken through later than him. Guang Wanhua, I'll turn a deaf ear to what you just said. I just hope you understand that at a time like this, not only do you represent yourself, but you also represent the Scarlet Light clan behind you. The Scarlet Light clan is a renowned peak clan in the Saints' world after all. In particular, the Scarlet Light ancestor is a figure of indomitable spirit. As the descendant of the Scarlet Light ancestor, while there's no need for you to share the same indomitable spirit as him, you definitely shouldn't tarnish the Scarlet Light clan's reputation, said Jin Hong. He spoke very mildly, completely without being demanding, yet there was a sense for firmness and courage that seemed to be able to stand up to even death. Yes. Young Master Jin Hong is right, Guang Wanhua replied in shame, no longer willing to bring up the matter of hiding in a divine hall again. Originally, Xueqi also wanted to hide in a divine hall, but once he saw what had happened with Guang Wanhua, he forgot about it immediately. Jin Hong sure is a man of talent, Jian Chen nodded secretly nearby. Jin Hong was not old either, only having cultivated for under a millennium. To be able to accomplish so much in such a short amount of time and still maintain such a calm and steady mindset really was rare. If he did not die young and manage to mature, his future would definitely be extremely astonishing. The shrunken group gathered back into a circle and continued onwards. They assigned all the God King guards to the edges, while the prodigies gathered in the center. As a result, even if a life-devouring beast attacked, it would come into contact with the sacrificial soldiers first. They could limit the deaths of normal cultivators. After all, sacrificial soldiers could only live for a century at most. Among them, some had already lived for several decades, so they did not have much time left. As a result, it was not too big of a deal to lose them. As the group continued to advance, the gray mist that permeated the mountains and forests became denser and denser. In the end, even God Kings could not see over 100 kilometers away. Fortunately, they still could use the senses of their souls. Through their senses they could observe everything within a 10-kilometer radius. Jian Chen looked at the obscuring mist and frowned slightly, as he had discovered that as the mist grew thicker, it gradually changed as well. It was actually leaching into his body slowly through his skin, his pores or even through his lungs, and then remaining inside and devouring his life force. Even though it was not evident at all, enough to fool even Jin Hong who had the legacy of a grand exalt, it was unable to fool Jian Chen who had reached the primordial realm and whose soul had also become extremely sensitive after mutating. Miss Chen, this mist is strange. If you trust me, immediately cloak yourself with energy. Don't let the mist approach your body, Jian Chen said to He Qianqian secretly. He Qianqian turned around and glanced at Jian Chen in surprise. However, she said nothing. Instead, she closed her eyes and tried to sense for something. Jian Chen sighed inside at the sight of this. He knew his warning out of goodwill would probably require some explaining, as these God Kings would not be able to discover the hidden issue in the mist. Let alone God Kings, even some infinite primes would not be able to detect it. The mist seemed like parasites. Once it entered the body, it would silently hide away, fusing with the cultivator. Without any special methods or exceptional cultivation, it was impossible to discover its existence. Lodged within a cultivator's body, it would slowly strengthen through devouring the cultivator's life force. The cultivator would not be able to sense the life force devoured, as the life force would remain within the cultivator's body. No one would be able to discover anything different. The only difference would be that a portion of the life force would no longer belong to the cultivator. I just wonder if this mist in the cultivator's body will change once again once it absorbs life force to a certain existent, Jian Chen thought suddenly. He could not help but think about the life-devouring beasts in the two-world mountains and began to guess and hypothesize. At this moment, He Qianqian opened her eyes and stared at Jian Chen in doubt. Yang Yutian, I haven't discovered anything strange at all. What are you trying to say? The mist here is nowhere near as simple as it seems. It can invade and lurk within the body of people. If they don't guard against it, it will definitely lead to significant problems and unimaginable consequences in the future. As a result, just in case, don't let the mist approach your body. Don't ask me why I know. My senses are much sharper, so I can discover things that you can't, said Jian Chen. He Qianqian looked at Jian Chen in doubt. She seemed like she wanted to understand what he was thinking through his eyes, to understand whether Jian Chen was telling the truth or not. She did not believe Jian Chen at all. She originated from the Heavenly Crane clan. She received the direct guidance of primordial realm experts since a young age, having been filled up with knowledge. She believed her insight was far greater than the ordinary man's, so in her eyes, even if there was something wrong, she should have discovered it first. It was impossible for Jian Chen, who was just an independent cultivator, to find out before her. Not to mention that she had discovered nothing when she tried. He Qianqian snorted in contempt when she heard Jian Chen's explanation that his senses were sharper. Was she, a supreme prodigy from a peak organization who had practiced various ancient secret techniques, not even as great as an independent cultivator? Sensing He Qianqian's doubtful gaze, Jian Chen could not help but feel powerless. Miss Chen, don't worry. I hold no ill intentions towards you. Just listen to me. Jian Chen was unable to find a convincing reason, as he definitely could not afford to expose his strength. Otherwise, once the Dark Star race learned a primordial realm expert had come in from outside, they would definitely raise their guard and prepare precautions against him. It would become far, far more difficult for him to save Sacred Feather like that. He Qianqian put some serious consideration into it before saying, This place isn't like the Saint's world, where you can absorb the origin energy in the surroundings to replenish your own whenever and wherever you want. If I really do cloak myself in energy, I will consume my origin energy extremely rapidly. I'll go find young Master Jin Hong. He's the successor of a Grand Exalt. Let's see whether he can discover anything wrong. If the mist really is hiding problems, then you would have done a deed of great merit, Yang Yutian. However, if it does not, when she reached there, He Qianqian paused, and her cold eyes suddenly sharpened. She said solemnly, I hope you understand that in a place like this, once I have discovered you are fooling around with me, the consequences will be thousands of times more severe than any other time. With that, He Qianqian turned back around and approached Jin Hong. Sigh to return good intentions with ill will. Jian Chen felt powerless. He directly ignored He Qianqian's threat. If he wanted to, he could leave this group whenever he wanted. The Two World Mountains were a hellish place from the perspective of others, but in his eyes, it was like his own backyard. Though the Two World Mountains are too vast. With the senses of my soul suppressed, I can't get a complete view of this place. Moreover, this world is formed from a huge beast. The area deep underneath the Two World Mountains seems to beat like a huge beast's heart. Every time it thumps, the geography changes, and our location changes slightly as well. It makes this place no different from a labyrinth. If I want to make it out, I have to follow these people. I'll only be able to leave easily through their secret techniques which can sense the location of 100 Saint City, thought Jian Chen. Yang Yutian, have you really discovered something strange about the mist here? Very soon, Jin Hong personally arrived before Jian Chen and asked sternly. Chapter 2690. Teaching a lesson. Jin Hong's actions attracted the attention of all the prodigies. At that moment, everyone looked at Jian Chen. Especially when they heard Jin Hong's words, their eyes all lit up. They immediately began to sense for something themselves. However, they failed to discover anything strange either. That's right, the mist is indeed different. It's very difficult to say what negative consequences it'll create for us, but we should take precautions just in case, said Jian Chen. You're lying. I've already inspected the mist here, and I haven't discovered anything strange at all. You say there's something off about the mist, so what's so off about it? The prodigy of the Chu family, Chu Jia, stated his doubts as soon as Jian Chen had finished speaking. Even some primordial realm experts would not be able to discover the peculiarity with the mist. It's also because of my extraordinarily sharp senses that I can discover the problem with it. It only makes sense that you can't find anything. Jian Chen crossed his arms and said leisurely, Anyhow, I've already warned you all. Whether you believe it or not is your choice. How dare you, Yang Yutian? Who do you think you are that allows you to say something like that to us? Chu Jie's face sank, and his gaze immediately turned hostile. He was already extremely annoyed over the fact that he was forced to cross the Two World Mountains. Now, not only had a mere independent cultivator spoken to him and the other prodigies of Peak Clan so impolitely, without any hint of respect, but the independent cultivator was even utterly fearless and treated them like nothing significant at all. Chu Jie was unable to accept this and immediately became infuriated. Everyone here is a supreme prodigy from a Peak Clan. We all possess superior status, so how can we allow you, a mere independent cultivator, to act so rudely? Kneel immediately and bow your head in apology. Otherwise, I'll be the first one to teach you a lesson, Chu Jie said viciously. This independent cultivator really stepped out of his bounds a little. No, he's rather arrogant. Maybe he's a little prideful over the fact that he could become a god king in 1,000 years. He has no idea that something like that really isn't anything special in our eyes. With our status, we only need a single word to end his life, another prodigy added after Chu Jie. He shot a glance at Jian Chen, and his voice was filled with evident arrogance and deep disdain. This independent cultivator has stepped slightly out of line. Jian Chen's casual attitude had become a form of arrogance in the eyes of the prodigies. Immediately, it displeased a portion of them, who sneered. He Qianqian's face sank when she heard what they all said. A vicious light flickered through her eyes. In her opinion, no matter how Yang Yutian had spoken, he was a part of her Heavenly Crane clan. Even if he were in the wrong, it would be her Heavenly Crane clan that would deal with him. These outsiders had no right to barge into this. Just when He Qianqian was about to say something, Jian Chen cut her off. If you want me to kneel, just you won't be enough. Let alone you lot. Even if your ancestors were here in person, they would not be able to make me kneel. Oh no! Qianqian became worried when she heard that. If he had only fallen out with the people here, it would be much easier to deal with. After all, everyone was in a similar position, so no one held fear towards anyone. However, now that Jian Chen had mentioned their ancestors, the matter had become much more severe. Yang Yutian, you're looking to die for slandering my ancestor. Chu Jie flew into a rage. With a flip of his hand, a supreme quality saint artifact sword appeared. A layer of golden, roaring flames from the sun covered the sword and shot towards Jian Chen as a golden streak of light. It's the sword qi of the Great Sun. That's the sword qi of the Great Sun from the Chu family. I never thought Chu Jie would use such a powerful battle skill right from the get-go. It looks like he wants to finish him in a single strike. The sword qi of the Great Sun was created by a great elder of the Chu family with exceptional cultivation through comprehending a high-grade god-tier battle skill. Its power is astonishing, and against opponents of the same level, they'll be left heavily injured even if they avoid death if they don't possess a secret technique of similar power. Chu Jie might seem so cowardly, but he's not weak. There's no need to watch any further. The outcome is predetermined. Even if that independent cultivator called Yang Yuqian manages to survive Chu Jie's sword qi of the Great Sun, he'll suffer miserably. That won't necessarily happen. Yang Yuqian was able to become a god king despite being an independent cultivator. He might possess the legacy of some powerful existence. The surrounding prodigies watched on like it was a show. Very few people were optimistic about Jian Chen's fate. However, Jian Chen remained composed. He directly threw a slap. With a crisp sound, Chu Jie's roaring presence from using the sword qi of the Great Sun ceased. He was knocked aside like a broken kite, flying 100 meters away before landing on the ground miserably. Half of his face had been reduced to a bloody mess. Clearly, no one had expected this. It left the surrounding people either stunned or dazed as they stared at Chu Jie, who was 100 meters away. They were shocked. What just happened? Did anyone see it clearly? That's impossible. Chu Jie was actually sent flying by a slap from Yang Yutian. What? Sent flying by a slap? That's just... Immediately, everyone who had witnessed the event was left dumbstruck. Even Qianqian became speechless. A gleam of interest flickered through Jin Hong's eyes. He stared at Jian Chen fixedly and became stern for the first time. The slap seemed to have left Chu Jie in a daze. He crawled to a feet in some confusion, subconsciously touching the half of his face that had become numb. Only when he saw his bloody hand did he seem to return to his senses. His eyes immediately became bloodshot, and he roared hoarsely, "Yang Yutian, I'll kill you! I'll carve you into a million pieces! Guards of the Chu family, get him! I want Yang Yutian torn to pieces!" With Chu Jie's command, roughly 700 of the sacrificial god kings from the Chu family moved immediately. All of them erupted with a powerful presence of god kings. They were about to execute Jian Chen. Stop! Yang Yutian is a part of my Heavenly Crane clan. Chu Jie, do you plan on becoming enemies with my Heavenly Crane clan? Qianqian stood forward in time. With her action, the several hundred sacrificial soldiers of the Heavenly Crane clan took a step forward as well, stopping the guards of the Chu family. Chu Jie, I don't care about any personal grievances you have with Yang Yutian, but if you plan on using your guards, I can't just stand by, Qianqian said coldly. I have suffered such great humiliation, which can only be washed away with his blood. I must kill him today. Qianqian, do you really plan on stopping me today? Chu Jie ground his teeth. His eyes were filled with resentment. Kill me? Just by you? Jian Chen said coldly. In the next moment, he appeared before Chu Jie like he had teleported and grabbed Chu Jie by the neck before lifting him up. Would you believe that if I want you to die right now, even all your guards won't be able to protect you? Chapter 2691. Exposure of ability. Jian Chen's voice was filled with killing intent. It did seem a little like an adult harassing children when he stooped to the level of these measly god kings. It did not match his identity much at all. However, every person had a temper, and they could lose it. Chu Jie's actions had clearly crossed Jian Chen's bottom line. If it were just some petty matters, Jian Chen would not be bothered at all. However, since it was about respect and dignity, it was no longer petty. The dignity of primordial realm experts could not be impinged on. Jian Chen raised Chu Jie into the air by the neck. Chu Jie struggled desperately with his feet. He also tried to pry away Jian Chen's hands instinctively, but he just seemed so powerless before Jian Chen with his cultivation at early God King. Moreover, Jian Chen had restricted him with a great power as he gripped Chu Jie's neck. Under the restriction, Chu Jie's movement was unaffected, but he had lost control of the power within his body. At that moment, the surroundings fell silent completely. Jian Chen had moved just too suddenly, so fast that many of the prodigies present were unable to react. All of the prodigies stared at the struggling Chu Jie, who had been lifted off his feet by his neck in shock. Their heads had blanked out. In their opinion, Chu Jie was not one of the particularly powerful god kings, but he was still a god king nonetheless. However, he was actually so flimsy before an independent cultivator who was also a god king. He was so frail. It had completely overturned their prior beliefs. He Chanqian was surprised as well. She thought about how even if she used her full strength, she would not be able to grab Chu Jie so effortlessly. As a matter of fact, it would take quite some effort for her to defeat him. Yet, the young Yuqian who had always maintained a low profile by her side had caught Chu Jie right from the start. He even seemed to have done so leisurely. Clearly, it took him no effort. How did Yang Yuqian suddenly become so powerful? He's definitely no ordinary god king. He Chanqian was shocked. Yang Yuqian is actually so powerful, and from his appearance, he doesn't seem to be using his full strength. Good. In somewhere as dangerous as the Two World Mountains, we need powerful people like him. The more people like him we have, the more likely we are to emerge from the Two World Mountains alive. Jin Hong was surprised as well. He stared at Jian Chen and became slightly excited. Stop, Yang Yuqian. What are you doing? Hurry up and release Chu Jie. At this moment, a prodigy on good terms with Chu Jie returned to his senses and immediately bellowed out. Several dozen sacrificial god kings surrounded Jian Chen in an instant. Perhaps due to being deterred by the strength Jian Chen had suddenly displayed, the prodigy and his people dared not stand too close to Jian Chen when they surrounded him. The prodigy stood behind his guards. However, he still did not seem to feel safe enough. He immediately called out to the crowd, Gong Rui's, Zhao Wenbin, Kong Feiyin, our brother is being harassed, so why don't you stand forward for him? With that, 3 other prodigies immediately stood forward from the crowd. They all surrounded Jian Chen with some of their own guards. Yang Yuqian, release Chu Jie immediately and apologize to him. Otherwise, it won't be our fault when we gang up on you. He's a mere independent cultivator, yet he's so arrogant. In my opinion, not only will he have to apologize, but he'll need to sever his own arm as well. Otherwise, he'll have to die here today. Chu Jie is our sworn brother. If you dishonor him, you dishonor us, and anyone who dishonors us will die. The 3 prodigies were extremely haughty. Even though Jian Chen's strength had exceeded all of their expectations, they were still prodigies from peak clans in the Saints' world after all. They were nurtured by primordial realm experts since they were young, so their knowledge and insight were extraordinary. They had seen their share of experts before, so the strength Jian Chen had displayed was obviously not enough to frighten them. Of course, their greatest source of confidence were the sacrificial soldiers they had brought with them from the outside world. Although we don't have any experts from our clans to protect us in the world of the fallen beast, once the sacrificial soldiers fall into formation, even some weaker infinite primes will struggle against them, let alone god kings. The prodigies were all confident. Against life-devouring beasts, they would be suppressed by the beast's ability to devour life, limiting the advantages of the sacrificial soldiers drastically. However, there was nothing to worry about against cultivators. With their interference, He Chanqian's face changed. If it were only the Chu family, she would be able to hold them off, but now that 4 other large organizations had shown up, she felt rather helpless. Surrounded by over 100 god kings, Jian Chen remained composed. He said coldly, "You slow-witted lot. Since you are asking to be disgraced, I'll give you what you want." With that, he tossed Chu Jie aside like a dead dog. Chu Jie knocked down 3 trees before landing on the ground. All of his joints had almost been dislocated, and he struggled to stand up again. Jian Chen immediately vanished, appearing before the 4 prodigies who stood behind their guards. He raised his hand and dealt out 4 slaps. Slap, 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 slap. With the 4 crisp sounds, the 4 prodigies suffered the same fate as Chu Jie. They had been slapped away mercilessly, with half their faces reduced to a bloody pulp. The guards they had brought were basically useless. Yang Yuqian, why, Tui, you actually hit us. A prodigy struggled to his feet and spat out a mouthful of blood and shattered teeth. He pointed at Jian Chen with a trembling hand as his eyes turned bloodshot like a wild beast. That's impossible. We're both god kings, so how did he knock me away in a single strike? I couldn't even react. The three other prodigies were much calmer. They closely recalled what had happened earlier. As they felt humiliated, they also broke out in cold sweat. Oh no, protect the young master. Everyone kill that person. At the same time, bellows rang out from among the sacrificial soldiers. All of them began to move, drawing supreme quality saint artifacts as they charged at Jian Chen. Reckless! Jian Chen snorted coldly. He formed a sword with his finger, and immediately, a silver-white stream shot out. He had condensed a sword from a simple strand of sword qi. He waved his sword, and a crescent sword qi immediately shot out. Wherever it passed by, the space distorted and pulsed. Under the pulsing of space, the sword qi suddenly erupted in speed, traveling several times faster. It passed through 8 god kings at an unbelievable pace. The 8 god kings only felt their waists scream out in agony. In the next moment, their bodies separated. They had been bisected along their waist. However, they were not dead. As long as their souls remained intact, they could recover from flesh wounds. Jian Chen clearly had no intentions of killing them. He had only injured them and did not target their souls. Fall into formation. Having witnessed Jian Chen's strength, the other guards reacted immediately. They quickly gathered together and prepared a formation. Chapter 2692. Catching Jin Hong's attention, seeing how seriously the situation had developed, He Qianqian became extremely stern. However, she knew that she could not allow Jian Chen to continue acting recklessly like this, or the situation would develop beyond control. Moreover, this was the Two-World Mountains. Danger lurked around every corner. They did not even know whether they could get out of here alive. At a time like this, they needed everyone to stand united. They could not afford any internal strife. Our Heavenly Crane clan was the one who brought Yang Yuqian on this expedition. As long as we are still in the Two-World Mountains, Yang Yuqian is a member of our Heavenly Crane clan. I need to stop it here, or once things spiral out of control, it'll be difficult for me to explain it to the Great Elder after I get out. He Qianqian made up her mind. Just when she wanted to stand forward and risk offending the prodigies of the several large clans, Jin Hong's voice rang out in her head. Hold on. Let's wait and see. Young Master Jin Hong, if you continue to do nothing, the consequences will only become worse, He Qianqian replied. It's not an issue. Holding back their 5 clans is a piece of cake. I want to see Yang Yuqian's strength, Jin Hong refuted calmly. His focus remained on Jian Chen as he added, Yang Yuqian has hidden himself very well. He had always been holding on to all his cards, even behaving like he was nothing special against the life-devouring beasts. He was so ordinary that even I ignored him. Only now have I discovered just how powerful he actually is. Moreover, I don't even think this is his full strength. Surprise flashed through He Qianqian's eyes. She had never thought the God King she recruited would be so capable. If Jin Hong were right, that would mean Yang Yuqian was much stronger than her. With Jin Hong speaking out, He Qianqian immediately became less worried. Jin Hong stared straight at Jian Chen. Surprise appeared in his eyes from time to time as he thought. When I approached Yang Yuqian earlier, the power of my bloodline actually roused uncontrollably. What does Yang Yuqian possess that can actually influence my bloodline? Jian Chen's battle against the sacrificial soldiers formally began to the other side. The God Kings had all received special training, raised for the purpose of battle. At this crucial moment, they unleashed everything they had learned in the past. With a single order, 46 God Kings stood in a special order, creating a large formation in an extremely short amount of time. The formation poured together the power of the 64 people. It was so powerful that even peak God Kings would face life-threatening danger against it. It could even kill peak God Kings. The formation was not particularly effective against life-devouring beasts, as any life-devouring beast that could force them to use it would be powerful and would be able to drain their life force before the beast had gotten anywhere close to them. However, the full might of the formation was unleashed against other cultivators. Any formation would require a certain amount of time to create. Despite having gone through repetitive training, the sacrificial god kings required a few seconds. Why would Jian Chen just watch them create their formation? Even after the formation was created, they still would not pose any threat to Jian Chen, but it would force him to expose even more of his strength. He obviously did not want to end up in such a situation. Jian Chen extended his finger several times, and resplendent sword qi shot out each time. Each strand of sword qi was under the influence of the laws of space whenever they shot out, allowing them to move extremely quickly, almost like they were teleporting. They were much faster than the God King's reactions, so it arrived before the sacrificial soldiers in the blink of an eye. Spurt! 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 The sword qi penetrated the foreheads of a few God Kings, killing them off on the spot as they tried to fall into formation. Jian Chen ended their lives mercilessly. As a result of their deaths, the powerful formation was interrupted before it could even be created. Yang Yuqian can actually use the laws of the sword and the laws of space to such an unbelievable level. His strength has already surpassed most of the prodigies here. The laws of the sword is one of the laws with the greatest offensive power, while the laws of space can allow him to overcome the issue of distance. With that combination, just how many of us are his opponent, even if we're also God Kings? The expressions of the surroundings prodigies changed. None of them could remain calm. Their opinions of Jian Chen underwent a drastic change, as the strength that Jian Chen displayed had surpassed most of them. Not only did this nameless independent cultivator reach God King within 1,000 years like everyone else, but he was even much stronger. It gave these prodigies who were nurtured since young by their clans quite a horrible feeling. Yang Yuqian must have received an outstanding legacy. A mere infinite prime's legacy is nowhere near enough for him to grow to such an astonishing level. He Qianqian was taken aback as well. Quick, use the 8 absolute killing formation. Seeing how the larger formation could not be completed, the sacrificial god kings shifted and formed groups of 8, creating a different formation instead. This time, due to the smaller groups, it took them much less time to fall into formation. They completed it almost immediately. In that moment, 7-8 absolute killing formations arose and pulsed with energy. In the next moment, 7 powerful streams of energy shot out from the formations, surging towards Jian Chen with great might as the prodigies reacted. The 8 absolute killing formation is enough to threaten mid-god kings. As a matter of fact, ordinary mid-god kings would suffer before the formation, let alone the fact that there are 7 of them. Yang Yuqian is probably done for. I wonder if Yang Yuqian can stop the 8 absolute killing formations. If he can, he's just too terrifying. The strength that Yang Yuqian has displayed isn't particularly clear. He seems like an early god king, yet he is also like a mid-god king. But he's definitely not a late god king. No matter what his strength is, he'll suffer even if he survives. You never know. Maybe Yang Yuqian has some trump card that he hasn't used yet. I refuse to believe he doesn't have a powerful battle skill or two. All of the prodigies observed things from the surroundings like they were watching a show. They indicated that they would not interfere with the battle or help anyone. Jian Chen finally became stern before the 7 formations. Of course, this was all an act for the prodigies so that he would not appear to be overly powerful. Afterwards, he formed a hand seal, and a powerful sword qi sprang up from his body. He bellowed, "Daluo sword." Immediately, the tremendous might of the world descended. Golden light rose up, condensing into 7 strands of resplendent, golden sword qi. Jian Chen had stopped using this move a long time ago. It was the Daluo sword. Due to it being at too low of a grade, it was already useless to him because he was at the primordial realm, which was why Jian Chen had stopped using it. However, at a time like this, it was perfect for him to fake the Daluo sword as a powerful battle skill. He could use it to explain why his battle prowess had suddenly erupted. The 7 strands of sword qi crossed through the air with a flash. They were like 7 galaxies, colliding with the streams of energy from the formations. With a deafening rumble, the streams of energy were bisected by the golden sword qi. The sword qi seemed unstoppable, tearing through whatever blocked its way. After slicing through the energy, they landed on the formations mercilessly. Blood spurted from the mouths of all the god kings in the formations, and they were sent flying like fallen leaves. They were heavily injured. To the other side, Jian Chen stood unscathed. Only his face was slightly pale. Of course, the paleness was an act as well. It was just to show everyone that it was extremely burdensome to use the Daluo sword. Chapter 2693. Settling down, the surroundings were silenced. Not only had Jian Chen's great display of might by dispersing 7-8 absolute killing formations alone stunned all of the prodigies present, but even a few of the sacrificial god kings who were about to charge towards Jian Chen were shocked. Immediately, the several hundred remaining sacrificial soldiers began to hesitate. They all looked at Jian Chen warily and fearfully. They were sacrificial soldiers, but that did not mean they could not feel fear, dread, and so on. Apart from a lifespan of just 100 years, they were no different from ordinary people. You bunch of idiots, what are you standing there for? Go get him together. Kill him. I want him dead without a corpse. Tear him to pieces. Xueqi climbed to his feet from under a tree several hundred meters away. With a vicious expression, he bellowed at the sacrificial soldiers of the Chu family. People of the Zhongqiong clan, listen up. Go get him together. Reduce Yang Yuqian to nothing. Kong Feiying also bellowed out. What humiliation! Oh, what a disgrace! Yang Yuqian, how dare you treat me like this? All sacrificial soldiers of the Gong clan, kill Yang Yuqian. Gong Rui's also screeched furiously. Yang Yuqian, no one can save you today. If the Heavenly Crane clan wants to save you, I'll destroy the Heavenly Crane clan first. It has always been us who were allowed to harass others. Who dares to harass us? You're a mere independent cultivator, yet you're so arrogant. Yang Yuqian, I will never spare you today. From now onwards, our Yuqiong sect, Zhao clan, Gong clan, Zhongqiong clan, and Chu family will be forming an alliance. Whoever stands in our way of killing Yang Yuqian will be an enemy of our 5 organizations. The prodigies from the 5 clans were furious. They were all brimming with killing intent as they looked at Jian Chen venomously. They were tempted to tear Jian Chen into pieces. They had been utterly humiliated in public. How could these 5 prodigies who had grown up in peak organizations with great status endure something like that? If the person who had humiliated them was Jin Hong instead, they would actually feel a little better, as both Jin Hong's strength and background were greater than them, making him someone they could not afford to offend. However, Jian Chen was a mere independent cultivator, which made the circumstances differ vastly. These prodigies looked down on independent cultivators from the bottom of their hearts. Even if it were a slightly more powerful independent cultivator, they would still be nothing in their eyes. With the prodigy's statuses, they could summon a primordial realm expert on their whim to easily crush the independent cultivator. I've already shown mercy. If you keep being stubborn, don't blame me if you end up dead. Jian Chen's eyes turned cold, and with a swing of his hand, a sword appeared, shining brightly. The sword was a supreme quality saint artifact. He had specially prepared it for the world of the fallen beast. Look, Yang Yuqian has already drawn his saint artifact. He has fought for so long, yet Yang Yuqian hasn't even drawn a weapon. He has been fighting empty-handed. I thought he didn't have a saint artifact that suited him, but never did I think he was hiding it the whole time. He has only drawn it now. That sword has probably reached the peak of supreme grade saint artifacts, making it only worse than god artifacts. Maybe you can already call it half a god artifact. He was actually even hiding a supreme quality saint artifact equivalent to half of a god artifact. Yang Yuqian wasn't using his full strength earlier. Yang Yuqian is far too powerful. I really don't know how he can grow to such an astonishing level as an independent cultivator. None of us can match him. The faces of the observing prodigies changed. Many of them stared at the sword in Jian Chen's hand, and their fear deepened. He Qianqian remained in a daze. Jian Chen had torn through the formations from several dozen god kings all alone, which was far too much of a shock to her. She knew that even she herself did not possess the ability to do that. The strength that Jian Chen had displayed right now completely surpassed her own. Get him together. Some of you, keep Yang Yuqian busy, while the others all fall into formation. Kill him. The 5 prodigies ordered together to another side. They were extremely confident that they could kill Jian Chen. Jian Chen's threats were ignored by them. This time, all the sacrificial soldiers that belonged to the 5 organizations set off. It was no longer a few dozen but a few thousand. The sacrificial soldiers swallowed their fear towards Jian Chen and immediately split into 2 groups. Some of them directly charged towards Jian Chen to keep him busy, while the others began to assemble into formations. Each formation was composed of several hundred god kings. Their might had surpassed the boundary of god kings. All of you stop. This matter ends here. Anyone who strikes out will be executed on the spot. At this moment, a bellow rang out. It was thunderous, deafening many people. Even the ground trembled. It also sounded like the howl of an ancient wolf god, possessing the power to stun one's soul. The souls of the several thousand sacrificial soldiers all jolted, and they blanked out. Jin Hong stepped forward from the ground. He did not give off any astonishing presence, remaining as ordinary as before. He walked over slowly, heading right towards the sacrificial soldiers. Even though he did not give off any particular aura, his appearance made the God Kings feel like they were facing a towering mountain. All of them could not help but back off. Hu Jie, Zhao Wenbin, Kong Feiying, Gong Ruiz, and Zhou Ji, the people who had been disgraced by Jian Chen, all changed in expression. They suppressed their sense of resentment, which made their faces warp a little. Young Master Jin Hong, do you plan on interfering with the matters of our 5 organizations? We've already announced earlier that anyone who tries to save Yang Yuqian will face our 5 organizations, Zhou Ji said grimly. Jin Hong remained calm. This is the 2 world mountains, not the outside. If there were small arguments, so be it, but once a large-scale conflict occurs, I must stop it, or the activity will draw over many life-devouring beasts. The consequences are unthinkable. Please do not bring disaster upon all of us over your personal grievances. Jin Hong was straightforward. He had spoken on behalf of everyone. He did not take a side. As for becoming enemies with your 5 organizations? Jin Hong slowly glanced past the 5 of them. His gaze gradually turned cold. You still don't represent the organizations that support you yet, so what right do you have in becoming enemies of me? Jin Hong, Chu Jie and the others were furious. They looked at Jin Hong as they fumed. There was nothing that they could say. Enough. Let's disperse and return to our positions. Once we get out of the 2 world mountains, I won't interfere with your personal grievances, but in the 2 world mountains, we must think of the bigger picture, or I won't show any mercy, Jin Hong said firmly, directly dispersing the sacrificial soldiers of the 5 clans. In the end, the disturbance ended with Jin Hong's interference. Within the group, Jin Hong clearly held a status of authority that no one could match. There were not many people who dared to stand up to him openly. Yang Yuqian, you said earlier that the mist here is strange. Can you go into further detail? Afterwards, Jin Hong arrived before Jian Chen and asked sternly. However, he thought to himself curiously, my bloodline has roused once again. Just what is Yang Yuqian carrying? Why does my bloodline rouse every time I come near him? And the bloodline is producing emotions of excitement and desire. Whatever that is on him must be extremely beneficial to me. Chapter 2694. Secret thoughts. Although doubtful, Jin Hong showed none of it. He remained composed, acting like nothing had happened at all. He only appeared concerned over the issue regarding the mist that Jian Chen had mentioned. However, unbeknownst to Jin Hong, when his bloodline roused, the droplet of blood from the ancient skywolf actually warmed up simultaneously. It trembled gently as warmth flooded Jian Chen's heart. The droplet of blood has actually acted up again. This is already the 2nd time. Through the blood, I can actually vaguely sense the bloodline within Jin Hong. It looks like it was no coincidence that Jin Hong could obtain the recognition of the ancient skywolf's legacy out of all the prodigies that the wolf clan had to offer. It seems like it's because a sliver of the ancient skywolf's bloodline flows through his body. It's just that the bloodline has become extremely thin. Jian Chen thought to himself. Through the droplet of blood, not only could he sense Jin Hong's bloodline, but he could even sense the activity from Jin Hong's bloodline, which allowed him to understand that Jin Hong had already become aware of the existence of the droplet of blood. However, Jian Chen also acted like nothing had happened. He replied to Jin Hong calmly, I've only discovered some traces of strangeness regarding the mist due to my abnormally sharp senses. I don't know anything else other than that. Yang Yuqian, it's not that I don't believe you. You just need to understand that this isn't the saint's world. We can't absorb energy from the surroundings to replenish our consumed energy. We have to replenish it through divine crystals. We're in the 2 world mountains as well, so we might have to fight the life-devouring beasts at any time. The energy consumption in battle will be extremely great, so we have to ration whatever energy we have. If we cloak ourselves with energy purely because of an unreliable gut feeling of yours, it'll be quite a burden for us, "Which'll slow us down," said the prodigy from the Empire Lotus Sword sect. He spoke to Jian Chen as an equal. Clearly, after the prior battle, the prodigies here no longer dared to look down on Jian Chen. He had won all of their respect. "Young Master Jin Hong, may I ask if you've discovered anything?" He Qian asked. Jin Hong remained silent. He looked away from Jian Chen, shifting his gaze to the shrouding gray mist. After a moment of silence he said slowly, "I haven't discovered any abnormalities, but I feel uneasy for some reason. I don't know whether that sense of unease comes from the life-devouring beasts or elsewhere. However, just in case, I would advise you all to cloak yourselves in energy and avoid contact with the mist." With that, Jin Hong took the lead and tremendous energy immediately flowed out from his body, forming a barrier around him. With Jin Hong's lead, several dozen prodigies followed him reluctantly. They began to protect themselves with energy. Even their sacrificial god kings did the same. In the end, roughly 2/3 of the prodigies decided to expend their energy for barriers. There were still a few people who refused to believe this. They were unwilling to waste the energy for nothing. Damn it. Now, we have to be holding divine crystals at all times. We have to replenish whatever energy we waste at all times. The journey is no longer as easy as before, someone grumbled inside. "Yang Yutian, I really do hope that this mist is like what you have described. If I find out you have been toying with us, I might not be able to do anything to you in the world of the Forsaken Beast, but I'll surely make you suffer once I return to the Saints' world. There are still some people who haven't cloaked themselves with energy. I guess that works too. I'll just let them continue like this and see if there really is anything strange about the mist or not." Everyone set off once more. Jian Chen put up an act and cloaked himself in a thin layer of light, walking beside He Qian. "You must have expended a great deal of energy in the battle before. Here's a pill for recovering origin energy. Eat it. In the Two-World Mountains, we must be at our peak conditions at all times." He Qian passed a pill to Jian Chen. She no longer spoke as coldly as before. Her attitude towards Jian Chen had clearly undergone a drastic change. "It's no issue. I didn't use too much energy in the battle before. I can return to my peak form through divine crystals very quickly." Jian Chen turned down He Qian's offer of the pill. With a flip of his hand, several supreme-grade divine crystals appeared. He clenched a few divine crystals in each hand and acted like he was working hard on recovering. From behind, Chu Jie, Gong Rui's, Kong Feiying, Zhou Ji, and Zhao Wenbin all stared at Jian Chen venomously. They swore oaths. "Yang Yutian, once you leave the world of the fallen beast, I'll make you die a graveless death." "If I want to kill Yang Yutian, there's no need to leave the world of the fallen beast. We only need to reach 100 Saint City, and we'll be able to deal with him," said Chu Jie. "That's right. With our status, would killing Yang Yutian pose any difficulty? If it were not for Jin Hong's interference, Yang Yutian would have died to the killing formation from the several hundred god kings of the Chu family. He can deal with the 8 absolute killing formations composed of 8 god kings, but can he deal with 100 tribulations formation composed of several hundred god kings?" Zhou Ji said. "The 100 tribulations formation is specially prepared for primordial realm experts. No matter how powerful Yang Yutian is, can he surpass primordial realm experts? Once the formation is completed, he will be dead for sure. Let's find a chance to finish him off once we leave the Two-World Mountains." Chu Jie's eyes shone viciousness. The disgrace he had felt today would become a permanent stain to his name. He utterly hated Jian Chen. "Humph. This had nothing to do with me originally. Zhou Ji, you just had to stand forward and play the good guy. Now you've done it. Not only have you thrown yourself into the matter, but we've also suffered as well," Gong Rui's fumed. He wanted to kill Jian Chen, but he was also extremely resentful towards Zhou Ji who had stood up for Chu Jie. "Zhou Ji, you've screwed me over this time," Zhou Wenbin and Kong Feiying added with sunken voices. Zhou Ji was bitter. He actually remained silent. At that moment, he felt a tinge of regret too. If he had known that Jian Chen was so strong, he would have never stood forward. Everyone continued through the Two-World Mountains on foot at a pace that was extremely slow to god kings. They did not travel in a straight line. Instead, they constantly changed directions. Due to the moving geography of the Two-World Mountains, the ground would shake like an earthquake from time to time, making the geography change slightly. Consequently, the direction they traveled in would veer off as well. They completely relied on a secret technique to determine the location of the distant Hundred Saints city through a slight connection, which prevented them from getting lost. As such, they stayed on track. In the blink of an eye, it had already been 3 days since Jian Chen and Xueqi fought. During those 3 days, they were attacked by several life-devouring beasts. The life-devouring beasts varied in strength, where the strongest had even reached mid-God King. The battle that time was the most intense one they had experienced since they entered the world of the fallen beast. Even Jin Hong, the one known to be the strongest in the group, personally took action. However, even with that being the case, their group suffered quite the loss. Several dozen sacrificial God Kings died. The mid-God King life-devouring beast could devour the life force of the early God Kings with great ease as it fought them. As such, it could rapidly recover its wounds no matter how severe they were. It was truly an unkillable monster. Chapter 2695. Life-devouring beast herd. As a matter of fact, without any exaggeration, life-devouring beasts were basically invincible among their respective cultivation levels within the Two World Mountains. Every single one of them was equivalent to a supreme prodigy from the Saints' world. Although they did not possess attacks as powerful as the supreme prodigies, their tenacity was far beyond anything the supreme prodigies could match. Their life force was just too powerful, and their regeneration was similarly terrifying. A cultivator fighting a life-devouring beast with the same cultivation would never be able to kill it. They would only die after exhausting all their energy. Jian Chen believed that if there were a peak God King life-devouring beast, probably only the supreme prodigies from the God King's throne would be able to deal with it. Even someone like Jin Hong, who had received a Grand Exalt's legacy, might not be able to handle such a life-devouring beast. Jin Hong was a mid-God King. He could easily kill most late God Kings, where even peak God Kings would not be his opponent. However, these God Kings were all ordinary ones. A tremendous difference existed between them and God Kings from the God King's throne. They were people on completely different levels. Yang Yutian, you clearly said there are issues with the mist, but it has already been 3 days, so why are we still standing here fine? Xueqi said suddenly. He was still resentful over the grievances he had suffered 3 days ago. He purposefully acted against Jian Chen. Not only has everyone expended a tremendous amount of origin energy against the life-devouring beasts in the past 3 days, but everyone has even had to cloak themselves with energy at all times. The rate of depletion is much faster than anyone can replenish their energy through divine crystals. In my opinion, if this continues, we'll probably die from exhaustion before we can even make it out of the Two World Mountains. Xueqi added with ulterior motives as well. Yang Yutian, what are you scheming? Tell us, what hidden agenda do you have? The prodigies who had no grievances with Jian Chen obviously would not go provoke someone as powerful as him. However, the 5 prodigies who had previously suffered at his hands did not care. They would never spare Jian Chen whenever the opportunity arose. Keep complaining, as you probably won't be able to complain anymore after a while, Jian Chen said coldly. He casually glanced past the other prodigies who had not cloaked themselves in energy. He could sense that the mist gathered within their bodies had reached a critical point. Something astonishing was probably about to happen within 2 days. However, Jian Chen did not tell anyone. He had already warned them anyway. He would not interfere with the decisions of others, nor was he willing to interfere. Moreover, it was perfect since he could use these people to test out just what dangers the mist posed to cultivators. Yang Yutian, what do you mean by that? The expressions of the 5 prodigies changed, as if they had reached tipping point. Yang Yutian, just endure it and ignore them. Don't stoop as low as them. Once we make it out of the Two World Mountains, I'll definitely make things right for you, he Qian comforted in a hurry, as she was afraid that Jian Chen would clash with the 5 of them again. Stop the unreasonable provocation, or it'll only affect our sense of unity. In the Two World Mountains, I refuse to allow anything to happen to our sense of unity. If anyone refuses, please leave our group and travel alone, Jin Hong added. Although Jin Hong had spoken firmly and appeared to be considering for the greater good, it was possible to discern that he favored Jian Chen a little. Xueqi and the others all came from peak organizations in the Saints' world and possessed great power, while Jian Chen was just an independent prodigy. He might have possessed extraordinary battle prowess, but in a different time and place, these prodigies would still not take him seriously. Jin Hong risked defending 5 large organizations to hold back Xueqi, Zhou Ji, Gong Rui's, Zhao Wenbin, and Kong Feiying, which was equivalent to protecting Jian Chen. The faces of the five of them immediately changed after hearing Jin Hong's words. They understood the dangers of the two world mountains very well. If they were really expelled from the group, none of them had the confidence of emerging from this place alive. At this moment, a dense series of fluttering sounds suddenly appeared. Gales whipped through the surroundings and whirlwinds composed of powerful energy wreaked havoc. The sudden occurrence made Jin Hong's face abruptly change. At that moment, he could no longer remain composed. He called out, "Oh no, it's a life-devouring beast herd. There's a large group of life-devouring beasts attacking us. Everyone, prepare for battle." What? A life-devouring beast herd? Damn it, there's trouble now. The most terrifying encounter would be life-devouring beast herds in the two world mountains because according to the records, each herd has a beast king. The larger the herd, the more powerful the beast king is. It looks like we've still ended up encountering a life-devouring beast herd in the end. Sigh. Everyone's faces changed drastically when they heard that. Many of them became sheet white, and Chu Jie's legs began to shake uncontrollably. At the same time, tremendous figures appeared in the range of everyone's senses. They were all 3 to 4 meters long, winged, green wolves. There was a tremendous number of them. Just the giant wolves that had appeared within everyone's senses amounted to several dozen, and that was not all. Who knows how many more were hidden beyond the range of their senses. There are over 1,000 life-devouring beasts, but fortunately most of them are below God King. There are around 50 at early God King and 3 at mid God King, Jian Chen thought. He glanced past the several tens of thousand God Kings on his side, and knew that they would probably have to pay a great price this time. However, there's a life-devouring beast that has remained stationary 200 kilometers away. It has reached late God King. It should be the beast king of this herd. Jian Chen's eyes glimmered. He knew that they had intruded upon the territory of this herd of life-devouring beasts. Once they alarmed the late God King Beast King, the consequences would be severe. He completely understood the strength of the Beast King. As the king of a herd, it would be much more powerful than most late God King life-devouring beasts. Even Jin Hong would only be able to flee before it. The group had already begun fighting with the herd. A few deity and god life-devouring beasts were slain by the numerous God Kings as soon as they appeared. From a single wave of attacks, several dozen deity and god life-devouring beasts were beaten to a pulp. Before the numerous sacrificial God Kings, only over-god life-devouring beasts could last for a moment, but they could only last for a moment at most. The difference in strength and numbers claimed the lives of these over-god life-devouring beasts. The battle below God King was one-sided. The life-devouring beasts suffered severe casualties. However, the battle between the God Kings was extremely intense. Over 50 early God King life-devouring beasts rampaged through a group of sacrificial soldiers. They constantly fluttered their wings and moved extremely quickly, sweeping through the crowd and constantly chomping down on the sacrificial soldiers. As they carried the God Kings in their mouths, they rapidly drained their life force while dodging the incoming attacks with great agility, avoiding being hit. As the God King's life force was devoured, the life-devouring beasts gradually grew stronger. It had only been a few seconds since the battle started, but several dozen sacrificial God Kings had already died to the mouths of the winged wolves. This number only increased. Chapter 2696. A Grand Exalt Secret Technique. Jin Hong became stern as well. He said grimly, "There are actually over 50 God King life-devouring beasts. This is the most dangerous threat we've encountered ever since we entered the Two World Mountains. Yang Yutian, let's kill these life-devouring beasts quickly so that we can minimize our casualties." The early God King life-devouring beasts obviously could not annihilate Jin Hong's group, but it would shave away a portion of the group's strength, which would weaken them greatly. None of the prodigies here had entered the world of the fallen beast to fight against the life-devouring beasts. They had come to visit 100 Saint City and control the various incidents happening in the city. If they lost too much power here, even if they emerged from the Two World Mountains successfully, they would not have the strength to deal with what was going on in 100 Saint City. By then, it would be pointless for them to have entered the world of the fallen beast in the first place. Jin Hong understood this extremely well, which was why he told Jian Chen to take action immediately. Within the group, only he and Jian Chen could kill these life-devouring beasts quickly, and with the death of each beast, a few extra sacrificial God Kings would be able to survive. Right after Jin Hong finished speaking, Before he even had the opportunity to take action, 3 presences that surpassed early god kings suddenly swept forth. They were as heavy as mountains, flooding the entire battlefield. Jin Hong immediately discovered the 3 10-meter-long, winged wolves in the mist within the limited range he could sense of around 20 kilometers. Their dull, unintelligent eyes shone with blood-red light as they steadily approached the battlefield. Oh no, mid-god king life-devouring beasts! Jin Hong's face changed, and he immediately alerted the prodigies there. What? More mid-god king life-devouring beasts? And 3 at the same time. We encountered a mid-god king life-devouring beast a few days ago, which took a heavy toll on us. It took us a tremendous amount of effort to kill it, yet 3 have appeared at the same time now. How are we supposed to deal with this? Aside from Jian Chen, the expressions of all the other prodigies present changed. Even He Qianqian's heart grew heavy. The strength of the life-devouring beast they had encountered a few days ago had left a permanent impression in everyone's mind. It was already so difficult to kill alone, yet 3 had come now. Many of the prodigies became despaired. Mid-god king life-devouring beasts are no weaker than late god kings. If I use my full strength, I should be able to kill one, Jin Hong said sternly before looking at Jian Chen. I think I can keep one busy, Jian Chen said with uncertainty, acting as if he were not very confident. All right then. I'll deal with one of the 3 life-devouring beasts. Yang Yutian will handle another, and the last one shouldn't pose a problem if you all work together. Yang Yutian, no matter what you do, you have to keep the life-devouring beast busy for an hour. I will kill the one I'm fighting within the hour, and then I'll come to assist you immediately, Jin Hong said sternly. Brother Yang Yutian, as long as you can keep it busy for an hour, you will have helped our group tremendously. All of us will owe you a favor. Once we make it out of the 2-world mountains and Chu Jie plans on making more trouble for you, I, Ping Yixing, will definitely be standing on your side, said a prodigy. His name was Ping Yixing, the leader of the Empire Lotus Sword Sect. Count me in. My Sun family isn't afraid of their Chu family, Gong clan, Zhao clan, Songqiong clan, and Yuqiong sect. The leader of the Sun family, Sun Ji, added as well. My Man family as well. With that, over a dozen large clans voiced their support of Jian Chen. This warped Chu Jie, Kong Feiying, Zhou Ji, Zhao Wenbin, and Gong Rui's faces greatly, as if it were disastrous. By now, Jin Hong had already flown off first, engaging in a battle against a mid-god king life-devouring beast. Booms constantly rang out. It was extremely intense. Jian Chen did not make too much idle talk with them. He clasped his fist at them before shooting off in Jin Hong's direction in a flash. Very soon, he was locked in battle against a second life-devouring beast. Regarding the third life-devouring beast, the remaining prodigies led a few sacrificial god kings with them and surrounded it. Several hundred people took part in the encirclement. Everyone, lock down on your life force. We can't let our life force become energy that strengthens the life-devouring beast. Jian Chen and Jin Hong were better off. As long as the life-devouring beasts did not land a blow on them, they would not be able to absorb their life force. However, the prodigies who faced the third life-devouring beast were not so fortunate. Their life force would be automatically siphoned away once they approached a certain range. Even if they did all that they could to lock it down, it would still flow away slowly. All of the life force would be siphoned into the life-devouring beast's body, allowing it to constantly strengthen instead. They were helpless with this. They could only grit their teeth and endure it. They could not reduce the number of people taking part in the attack. Due to the difference in cultivation, an extremely wide gap existed between them and the life-devouring beast. They needed an absolute numerical advantage to keep it at bay. Only then would the possibility of survival be greater. If the sacrificial god kings were not present, the life-devouring beast definitely would not be able to absorb as much life force, but a few of the prodigies would die as well. None of them wished to die, which was why they would much rather let the life-devouring beast gradually strengthen than send away the sacrificial god kings. Immediately, the situation was divided into 4 battlefields. The 3 mid-god king life-devouring beasts occupied a battlefield each, where the god kings maintained a safe distance to prevent their life force from being drained. The 4th battlefield was composed of a large group of sacrificial god kings encircling a group of early god king life-devouring beasts. The early god king life-devouring beasts had been reduced to around 40 now. Almost 10 of them had been slain within the encirclement, But the sacrificial god kings had paid quite a hefty price as well. Quite a few of them had died. Blessing of the wolf exalt. Suddenly, Jin Hong bellowed out, and energy surged into the form of a giant wolf. The wolf was blurry and unclear, but as soon as it appeared, a paramount pressure permeated the surroundings, as if it were the ruler of the space here. The ancient sky wolf. Jian Chen looked at the blurry wolf from afar. Even though it was so blurry that he could no longer make out its appearance, he could still tell that it was a past sovereign of the world. It was an expert who had reached the limits of Grand Prime, comprehending an entire law and was basically equivalent to the heavenly ways. It was an ancient sky wolf. As soon as the figure appeared, Jin Hong's battle prowess multiplied. As for the winged life-devouring beasts, they all paused at that moment, as if they were influenced by the ancient sky wolf's presence. Whether it be the early God King life-devouring beasts or the 3 mid-God King life-devouring beasts, they all became temporarily stunned. That momentary pause came at a severe cost to them. Immediately, 8 early God King life-devouring beasts were smashed to pieces, and the other winged wolves suffered injuries of various degrees as well. Wolf God's Claw. Jin Hong bellowed out, and the figure of the ancient sky wolf behind him moved with him. It made Jin Hong seem like he was the ancient sky wolf, directly striking the head of the winged, green wolf. A part of the wolf's head directly exploded, and half of its eye was smashed into pieces as well. It was sent flying by Jin Hong's attack. At that moment, Jin Hong seemed to be surrounded by the sky wolf. He was awe-inspiring. With a single movement, he caught up to the winged wolf with even greater speed. He spread his arms, and a huge pair of powerful arms directly grabbed the wolf by its wings before yanking suddenly. The wings of the mid-God King life-devouring beast were directly ripped off by Jin Hong. Afterwards, Jin Hong produced a howl at the sky. The howl was elating, just like the howl of an ancient sky wolf, stunning everything in the surroundings. Jin Hong's head suddenly turned into a wolf's. It was a head covered in golden fur. Like an emperor among the wolves, it gave off a dignified, noble aura, enough to unite the powerful. He gave off an inviolable sense of pride. At that moment, Jin Hong had taken the form of a humanoid wolf, with a wolf's head and a human's body. He suddenly opened his fangs and chomped down on the remainder of the life-devouring beast's head with lightning speed. The huge figure of the ancient sky wolf behind him replicated his actions, chomping down just like Jin Hong. It seemed like Jin Hong was imbued with the power of the ancient sky wolf such that the life-devouring beast was beheaded with a single bite after a crisp crack. This time, the life-devouring beast did not recover. Even the tremendous amount of life force it had accumulated within its body was useless. After using the blessing of the wolf exalt, Jin Hong seemed to have gained the support of the ancient sky wolf. Not only was the might of every single move unmatched, they were all extremely profound as well. They seemed to be hiding countless secrets, allowing him to sever the life force of the life-devouring beast. In less than 5 minutes, Jin Hong had killed the life-devouring beast that he said he needed an hour to kill before. It was his complete victory. Look over there. The mid-God King life-devouring beast has actually been slain by Jin Hong. Jin Hong really is the successor of a Grand Exalt. That's probably his true strength. He's actually so powerful. He's probably powerful enough to make it onto the God King's throne. Jin Hong is actually so terrifying. He's only a mid-God King right now. If he makes it to late God King, wouldn't making the top 10 of the God King's throne be set in stone for him? Top 10? You underestimate young Master Jin Hong far too much. As long as young Master Jin Hong becomes a late God King, he'll definitely place first. Jin Hong ended the battle with lightning speed. Obviously, many of the prodigies witnessed what had happened, and they were immediately stunned. They could already see the light of victory. So much for a Grand Exalt secret technique. It really is powerful. To another side, the bloody Jian Chen had also noticed Jin Hong and nodded secretly as he put up an arduous fight as a ruse. Jin Hong was the successor of a Grand Exalt. As the successor of the ancient Sky Wolf, only strength like that would truly match his identity. Chapter 2697. The Beast King, Yang Yutian. Let me assist you. Let's work together and kill this life-devouring beast. After killing one of the mid-God King life-devouring beasts, Jin Hong released his secret technique, and the blurry figure of the ancient Sky Wolf immediately vanished from behind him. His presence returned to normal, and he immediately rushed towards Jian Chen. The secret technique was indeed powerful, but it also expended a tremendous amount of energy. It was to the point where even Jin Hong did not want to use it for even a second longer. He would much rather work with Jian Chen to kill the life-devouring beast than to use the blessing of the wolf exalt again. To the other side, Jian Chen purposefully appeared to be under great strain as he fought against the life-devouring beast. When he saw Jin Hong fly towards him, he came up with an idea and suddenly said, "There's no need. I can still last for much longer, so go deal with the other life-devouring beast first." Currently, the third mid-God King life-devouring beast was wreaking havoc. It forced back the prodigies and God Kings constantly, completely gaining the upper hand. Half of the prodigies suffered wounds, some light and others worse. They were all covered in blood. Several of the sacrificial God Kings had already been mauled to death by the vicious life-devouring beast. Against so many prodigies, the life-devouring beast that was only a mid-God King constantly suffered injuries as well. Even though none of these prodigies were as powerful as the life-devouring beast, they did come from peak clans in the Saints' world after all. They all possessed powerful and ancient secret techniques. Some of their secret techniques could even allow them to unleash attacks on the level of mid-God Kings despite only being early God Kings. The life-devouring beast would suffer greatly under these powerful secret techniques, except the wounds would be nothing compared to its tremendous life force. Especially after draining the tremendous life force of a few sacrificial God Kings, the life-devouring beast would have more life force to recover as it grew stronger. Without Jian Chen and Jin Hong, these two great experts who could match late God Kings, killing the life-devouring beast with just the prodigies and sacrificial God Kings would be extremely difficult. Jin Hong immediately paused after hearing Jian Chen's words. He glanced past the two battlefields and understood exactly what was going on. Yang Yuqian is very powerful. Although it seems difficult for him to handle a mid-God King life-devouring beast alone, he won't be defeated anytime soon. However, the people on the other side have already lost the upper hand. People can die at any time. With a quick thought, Jin Hong changed directions, flying towards the third life-devouring beast now. He went to save the prodigies. Swish! Jin Hong was extremely fast. He arrived before the other life-devouring beast in a flash and transformed his hand into a claw to directly grab its hind leg. With a violent jerk, a large piece of flesh was ripped off from the life-devouring beast's leg. Fantastic! Young Master Jin Hong has come. Since young Master Jin Hong has arrived, this life-devouring beast is dead for sure. Everyone unleash your full strength and kill it with young Master Jin Hong. Jin Hong's arrival made everyone's morale peak. No one held back anymore, all unleashing powerful secret techniques to assist Jin Hong in killing the life-devouring beast. Jian Chen watched on from afar. The light in his eyes flickered as he thought. Within the range of the senses of my soul, there were numerous life-devouring beasts moving about within a range of 10 million kilometers. There are many huge life-devouring beasts as well. If this continues on like this, I wonder when are we going to emerge from the Two World Mountains. The Two World Mountains is just too vast. I can only observe a portion of it even with the senses of my soul. I have no idea where the way out is. And the special geography here constantly changes. If I travel in a straight line, I'll probably just end up walking in circles. I need them to make it out of here. It looks like if I want to make it out of the Two World Mountains as soon as possible, I need to leave the group and clear the obstacles in front of them so that they can cover ground without obstruction. Only then can I leave the Two World Mountains as quickly as possible. Suddenly, a sharp gleam of light flashed through Jian Chen's eyes. 100 kilometers away, within the center of a small mountain range stood the highest peak. On it lay a winged wolf with golden fur. It exhaled and inhaled the energy of the world. It was cultivating. This golden wolf was clearly a life-devouring beast, except the pulsing energy it gave off was so great that it had reached late God King. Let alone the Two World Mountains, a late God King across the entire world of the fallen beast was an existence that could stand supreme. The strongest in the world of the fallen beast were only infinite primes, and there were so few of them. It was possible to count them all. As a result, late God Kings who were only second to infinite primes possessed extraordinary statuses. Suddenly, a powerful strand of sword chi condensed out of nowhere above the golden wolf. Before the wolf could respond, the sword chi directly stabbed at the beast, leaving behind a deep slash. The golden wolf suddenly roused from cultivation and opened its eyes. Within the fury of its scarlet eyes was a sparkle. It seemed like it possessed a slight amount of self-consciousness, having reached late God King, making it unlike the other life-devouring beasts that only acted on instinct. Of course, it was only a slight amount, not even enough for it to communicate with others. The golden wolf produced a great howl after rousing. The sound pierced through everything and shook up the vegetation and rocks. Then it looked away as if it could sense something, immediately locking down on where Jian Chen fought. It shot off like an arrow. 100 kilometers away, Jin Hong and the prodigies also heard the piercing wolf howl as they fought the life-devouring beast. Their faces changed drastically. Did that come from a late God King life-devouring beast? A prodigy asked with a pale complexion. Mid-God King life-devouring beasts are already difficult enough to handle, let alone late God King ones. Probably only primordial realm experts can kill a late God King life-devouring beast. Another prodigy added with difficulty as his voice trembled. We're in trouble now. Against a late God King life-devouring beast, we probably can't even escape, the prodigy from the Empire Lotus Sword sect, Ping Yixing, also said with a sunken voice. He could feel the impending danger. Blessing of the Wolf Exalt. Jin Hong bellowed and used the secret technique once more. A tremendous presence appeared, and the figure of the ancient Sky Wolf appeared behind him once more. His battle prowess skyrocketed after using the secret technique. In just a few attacks, he tore the life-devouring beast that the prodigy struggled against so much to pieces. Afterwards he called out, "Everyone assist Yang Yuqian in killing the final mid-God King life-devouring beast, and then flee as quickly as you can. I'll go draw the Beast King away. My blessing of the Wolf Exalt can last for 5 minutes at most. After that, even I don't know what fate I'll be facing. During that time, you have to flee as far away as you can. You can only rely on yourselves for the upcoming journey." At that moment, Jin Hong seemed like he was about to take on everything alone. Even against the late God King life-devouring Beast King, he was fearless. Afterwards, he tossed a divine hall to Jian Chen and said, "Jian Chen, that divine hall contains all the cultivators. You're probably the strongest besides me, and you also have grasped the laws of space, so your chances of survival are much greater than everyone else's. I'll leave these people to you. I hope that you can emerge from the Two World Mountains alive." Chapter 2698. Leaving the group looking at the incoming divine hall, Jian Chen did not extend his hand to catch it. He looked at the determined Jin Hong in surprise. He had never thought that Jin Hong would sacrifice himself to save others. Against the undefeatable life-devouring Beast King, he did not try to flee by himself. Instead, he chose to risk his life and draw it away to make time for everyone's escape. After all, Jin Hong did not have any particularly close ties with the prodigies here. Strictly speaking, they were not even the simplest of friends. They were all strangers. Only because of the seniors of their clans and their common goal had they formed a group together. With how Jin Hong was willing to lay his life down for these people, Jian Chen was forced to re-evaluate him. Hold on. Young Master Jin Hong, you are the backbone of the entire group. You can't leave us, or even if we manage to avert this disaster for now, our future journey will become extremely difficult without you. Why don't you let Yang Yuqian draw away the life-devouring Beast King? After all, we've all witnessed his strength. I firmly believe that Yang Yuqian can take on such a heavy burden, Xueqi said suddenly. Jian Chen had humiliated him before, which made him resent Jian Chen. Now that such a great opportunity had presented itself, he would never simply let it slide. He wanted to screw over Jian Chen viciously. Xueqi is right. Not only is Yang Yuqian powerful, he's skilled with the laws of space as well. He's the most appropriate candidate for drawing away the life-devouring Beast King. After all, who is better at fleeing than those with the laws of space? Chu Jie did not forget to seal the deal as he sneered. Xueqi, Chu Jie, you! Qian was furious. How could she not know that Chu Jie and Xueqi were trying to push Yang Yuqian to his death? This was not the outside world after all. Once people ran out of energy here, it would be far more difficult to replenish it than in the Saints' world. With Yang Yuqian's mastery over the laws of space, even if he could escape from the late God King life-devouring Beast King, who could guarantee that he would not meet even more powerful life-devouring beasts? To say the least, even if Yang Yuqian managed to survive somehow, he would be completely lost in the Two World Mountains because he would have left the group. His final fate would be obvious. Only the people from organizations who had participated in the construction of 100 Saint City knew the way to the city. Moreover, it was forbidden to pass the secret technique that could detect the city's location to others, nor was it possible to do so. Yet, at a time like this, Qianqian was unable to say anything to rebuke them, as she would be offending Jin Hong if she did. Jian Chen remained composed. He glanced past Chu Jie and Zhou Ji coldly. Even though he had wanted to take advantage of the situation to leave the group, Chu Jie and Zhou Ji's actions had roused his killing intent. Afterwards, he flicked a finger, and a gust of wind slammed into the divine hall, sending it back into Jin Hong's hand. Jian Chen said, "Young Master Jin Hong, leave the life-devouring beast to me. I have grasped the laws of space, so I possess an absolute advantage in terms of speed. Drawing it away won't be anything difficult. Miss Chen, please keep this divine hall with you. Once I leave, it's extremely likely for me to get lost here. As a result, I've left a sliver of the power of my soul in the divine hall. If I die, the fragment will disperse, but if I'm alive, I can locate you through the fragment, or even catch up to you." As he said that, Jian Chen produced a supreme quality saint artifact divine hall and tossed it to Qianqian. Afterwards, he immediately abandoned the mid-god king life-devouring beast opponent and vanished with a flash, disappearing into the hazy mist. "Yang Yutian, you must be careful. I'll wait for your safe return." Jin Hong glanced in Jian Chen's direction with some mixed emotions before immediately unleashing his full strength and engaging the mid-god king life-devouring beast. In the end, Jin Hong used the blessing of the wolf exalt and slew all the life-devouring beasts there before immediately leading the group away from the area as quickly as possible. They did not even collect the valuable corpses. In the end, they lost over 1,000 sacrificial god kings in the battle, and the prodigies all suffered injuries of various degrees. "Humph, Yang Yutian, I refuse to believe that you'll survive this time. I refuse to believe that you can escape a life-devouring beast king in the two-world mountains just by relying on your laws of space." As the group left in a hurry, Chu Jie rejoiced secretly. Some of the humiliation he experienced dispersed. He believed that Jian Chen was dead for sure now. "Yang Yutian, I hope you return safely. I'll definitely protect this divine hall so that you can find your way and catch up to us." Qianqian clutched Jian Chen's divine hall firmly. She constantly sensed for the fragment of the power of Jian Chen's soul in there as she secretly prayed. Qianqian obviously hoped that he could return safely given the great battle prowess he had displayed. At the very least, he was still a member of the Heavenly Crane clan. He could add to the might the Heavenly Crane clan possessed in the world of the fallen beast. "Brother Yang Yutian, I hope that you survive." Many other prodigies prayed for Jian Chen as well. They were not Jian Chen's friends. Instead, they had been moved by Jian Chen's sacrifice. Elsewhere, Jian Chen was finally free from all the restrictions he had when he was in the group. He could finally unleash his full strength. He drew the life-devouring beast king far away, flying in the exact opposite direction from the group. In the end, he stopped several thousand kilometers from the group and stood with his arms crossed, waiting. A while later, a powerful gust of wind arrived. A huge, golden wolf appeared before Jian Chen as it fluttered its wings. The aura of a late god king beast king flooded out into the surroundings, frightening a few life-devouring beasts in the surrounding 100 kilometers and forcing them onto the ground. A late god king life-devouring beast was already an unmatched ruler within the two-world mountains. It possessed a degree of self-consciousness and could claim its own territory. The wolf glanced at Jian Chen before immediately producing a howl as it charged towards him. At the same time, a mysterious devouring force enveloped Jian Chen. Jian Chen remained calm against the life-devouring beast king that was enough to frighten all of the prodigies. Before Jian Chen, its terrifying ability to devour life force was a joke. Jian Chen exhaled gently, and the breath of air he let out transformed into a streak of light in an instant. Radiating with powerful sword intent, it immediately shot forward and pierced through the life-devouring beast king. Afterwards, the life-devouring beast king that had frightened so many prodigies was bisected mid-air. It was split in half, from its nose down its body. Not only had the streak of light sliced its body, it had also destroyed its ability to heal. After a single clash, the life-devouring beast king had died. All that was left was pure life force. Chapter 2699. Harvesting en masse the remains of life-devouring beasts were extremely valuable. The stronger the life-devouring beast, the greater its value. As a result, Jian Chen obviously would not simply leave behind this late God King life-devouring beast king. Instead, he pulled out a space ring and tossed the corpse inside. Life-devouring beasts were unique to the world of the fallen beast. They originated from the special environment here, and if they left this place, they would not be able to survive. As a result, life-devouring beasts did not exist in the saints' world. Even if they did, they would be corpses taken from the world of the fallen beast. Their remains contained tremendous life force, making them a fantastic material for many high-grade god-tier pills. As a result, the remains of life-devouring beasts were an important resource that many peak organizations fought over in the saints' world. Even Grand Primes valued the remains of life-devouring beasts. Even the pills of the lowest grade refined from life-devouring beasts would be mid-grade god tier. They could even reach high-grade or supreme grade. Grand Primes would also fight and could also get injured. They would need impressive god tier pills to heal once they were injured, so the remains of life-devouring beasts were a crucial, strategic resource to any peak expert or organization. Even though Jian Chen had only learned about the existence of life-devouring beasts recently, he had learned a lot about them from Yi Chanqian, which was why he knew exactly how valuable they were in the saints' world. Now that he was free from the group, he obviously would not miss this fantastic opportunity to harvest the remains of life-devouring beasts en masse. As a result, he immediately hurried off after collecting the life-devouring beast king's corpse. With a flash, he hurried off towards another area where a large life-devouring beast herd was gathered. Jian Chen was completely fearless in the dangerous Two-World Mountains. Nothing could pose a threat to him. He traveled with lightning speed, and in just a few seconds, he appeared 1,000 kilometers away. There, Jian Chen detected another large herd of life-devouring beasts through the senses of his soul. On one of the mountains within his vision gathered several thousand presences of life-devouring beasts. There was a late God King life-devouring beast king there as well, with 5 mid-God King and over 100 early God King life-devouring beasts. The rest were all below God King. Jian Chen did not take action as soon as he arrived. Instead, his eyes became silvery white, filled with vast amounts of sword intent. He was using the will of the ultimate way of the sword. With the ultimate way of the sword, the world was within his control. The fate of every living organism within the range of 100,000 kilometers was within his grasp. In a split second, powerful sword intent engulfed the mountain occupied by several thousand life-devouring beasts. At that moment, the flowing air, the unique energy of the world, even the vegetation, rocks and soil turned into extremely sharp sword qi. The countless strands of sword qi were densely packed, filling the space there, radiating with a destructive presence. Destroy! Jian Chen had truly become the ruler of this region. With a single thought, all of the life-devouring beasts, including the life-devouring beast king, could not even let out a single sound. They could not even put up a struggle. They just died then and there, slain by the will of Jian Chen's ultimate way of the sword. For those below the primordial realm, no one could withstand the will of Jian Chen's way of the sword. The only way to survive was to step into the primordial realm. In the blink of an eye, the herd of life-devouring beasts that was even larger than the previous herd of winged wolves was completely slain. If Jin Hong's group were present, probably all of them would jump in fright. Jian Chen collected all of their corpses, but once he stowed all the corpses into his space ring, the space ring became filled to the brim. He had run out of space. What a pity! Due to the limitations on the grade of the space rings that I can bring in, there isn't much space in them. Just a single life-devouring beast herd has filled it to the brim. It looks like I need to find more space rings. Jian Chen frowned as he looked at the space ring on his finger. Then he looked in the direction where he had come from, and after a moment of hesitation, he immediately left the area with the laws of space. He could cover a range of 10 million kilometers with the senses of his soul in the Two-World Mountains. He had not traveled for more than 10 million kilometers from where he had parted with the group, so the location of where the great battle occurred was still within Jian Chen's range. Jian Chen returned to the battlefield with terrifying strength and collected a vast amount of space rings from the sacrificial soldiers. He continued his hunt after taking these space rings. In a mere 3 days, the number of life-devouring beasts that had died to Jian Chen's hands ranged into the 10,000s. These life-devouring beasts varied in size, with some being as small as a few meters and some being as large as a few hundred meters. He collected all of their corpses, and half of all the space rings he had collected from the sacrificial soldiers 3 days ago were filled. In this supposed zone of danger, Jian Chen saw no danger at all. Instead, it was more like a playground where he could do whatever he wanted. During those 3 days, the group had traveled peacefully under Jin Hong's lead. They did not encounter a single attack from life-devouring beasts, so they gradually sped up. Yep, they are traveling faster and faster. At this rate, they should be able to leave the Two World Mountains soon. It's just a pity that I still can't find the exits even with the senses of my soul. Several hundred kilometers away, Jian Chen sat on the back of a huge eagle that spanned several hundred meters. It flew at an altitude of 1,000 meters. As the group slowly covered ground, Jian Chen maintained a certain distance in front of them under his deliberate control. The eagle was also a life-devouring beast. It was at Late God King. Late God King life-devouring beast kings would have developed a weak level of intelligence already, which was why Jian Chen was able to tame it with force, temporarily using it as a mount. The hidden issue caused by the mist seems like it will erupt soon. It's perfect for me to see just what kind of danger this mist will pose to cultivators when it lurks within their bodies, Jian Chen murmured to himself on the back of the eagle. He kept the senses of his soul expanded, so he could clearly observe the situation of the group. Chapter 2700. A strange sight several hundred kilometers behind Jian Chen. The huge group led by Jin Hong moved through the thick forest quietly. They would encounter some swamplands and rivers from time to time, so they all hovered above the ground. Their presences were hidden away. Even the cultivators who cloaked themselves with energy carefully controlled the pulses of power as they did their best to remain hidden. As a result, even though there were numerous people in the group, they did not produce a single sound that stood out. From afar, they seemed like a flock of ghosts that were quickly gliding through the forest. It has already been 3 days, yet we haven't come across a single life-devouring beast. The journey has been surprisingly peaceful. Young Master Jin Hong really is clever, coming up with an idea like this to save us a lot of unnecessary trouble. The prodigy from the Scarlet Light clan, Guang Wanhua, communicated to everyone gleefully. Originally, he possessed deep fear towards the Two World Mountains. He was even afraid of setting foot in there. Every single battle before had put him on edge. He had basically been dancing on the boundary of death every single time, where the slightest carelessness would take him into the gaping chasm of darkness, dooming him for all of eternity. The peace of the past 3 days immediately improved Guang Wanhua's perception of the Two World Mountains. It no longer seemed as terrifying as rumored. I really hope that the rest of our journey can remain this peaceful so that we can leave the mountains as soon as possible. Once we get out of here, all of us will basically be safe, He Chanqian added eagerly. Don't celebrate too early. We won't necessarily be safe once we emerge from the Two World Mountains. None of us knows what has happened to the 100 Saint City that our clans have occupied for so many years. I think that even if we do make it out of the Two World Mountains alive, what we face next will just be a new challenge, Ping Yixing of the Empire Lotus Sword Sect said grimly. As soon as Ping Yixing finished speaking, a prodigy retorted, "What's there to be terrified about? We've brought so many sacrificial soldiers with us that just the sheer amount is unprecedented, and it is just to resolve all instability within the world of the fallen beast. We can't use the sacrificial soldiers properly in the Two World Mountains as they are unsuited for battles against life-devouring beast, but as long as we can get out of this place, we can lead a massacre among the Dark Star race with the power that we possess." That's right. As long as we make it out of the Two World Mountains, everything will be all right. The formations created from our sacrificial soldiers can even deal with infinite primes. Just how many infinite primes does the Dark Star race have? The Dark Star race won't pose any problems to us at all. What we should be cautious about are these life-devouring beasts. They are our primary opponents. Everyone communicated through the use of techniques such that there were no sounds at all. Many of the prodigies spoke of the Dark Star race with contempt. The most powerful expert from the Dark Star race, the Dark Star Emperor, was only a 9th heavenly layer infinite prime. On the other hand, every single organization behind them possessed a grand prime. Some of them even had several grand primes. This was also why some of them looked down on the Dark Star race from the bottom of their hearts. Everyone shut up. At this moment, Jin Hong bellowed out, and everyone's conversations came to a halt. They immediately became nervous, sternly raising their guard. They thought they were facing some new danger. Jin Hong did not say anything else. Instead, he closed his eyes and sensed for something carefully. A while later, when he opened his eyes, there was a flash of light, and he vanished. He appeared before a cave several kilometers away. All of the prodigies followed behind him with a group of sacrificial soldiers. They all held their breaths as they stood behind Jin Hong sternly and nervously. "Young Master Jin Hong, is there something wrong?" Sun Ji could not help but ask as he looked around. Jin Hong stared into the pitch-black cave for a while before glancing around sternly. He frowned, and a while later he said, "There was originally quite a large life-devouring beast herd here. Looking at the traces in the surroundings, there should have been extremely many life-devouring beasts here before, and this cave should have been where the life-devouring beast king resided. For some reason, all of them have vanished." Everyone looked around instinctively with that, and indeed, they found the traces left behind by many life-devouring beasts. Immediately, their hearts shivered, and they became nervous for some reason. These life-devouring beasts have probably moved away. They've probably migrated elsewhere, Kong Feiying of the Zhongqiong clan said casually. With that, many people nodded in agreement. That can't be right. Jin Hong frowned and shook his head. Along the way, this is the second place I've found where a life-devouring beast herd used to reside. The situation in these two places are exactly the same. There were no traces of battle, but all of the life-devouring beasts had disappeared. And looking at the lingering presence, these life-devouring beasts all vanished 2 to 3 days ago. And according to my secret technique, I haven't discovered any evidence of migration. If such a large herd of life-devouring beasts migrated away, they would leave behind a presence even if they did not leave behind a single trace. It would be impossible for such a strong presence to vanish in such a short amount of time, which is why I would be able to sense it with my secret technique with ease. However, I haven't found any presence of migrating life-devouring beasts, nor are there any traces of their departure. It seems like they've just evaporated. This is the last trace they've left behind before vanishing. For a moment, everyone fell silent. The sudden disappearance of a huge beast herd made many people uneasy. Could they have been killed, and then their remains were taken away? He Qianqian said rather unnaturally. That's even less likely. Ping Yixing of the Empire Lotus Sword sect immediately rejected the possibility. Looking at the traces, many life-devouring beasts resided here. There should be a late God King life-devouring beast king watching over this place at the very least. Even infinite primes can't kill so many life-devouring beasts without leaving behind traces of a struggle. That's right. Even though an infinite prime can easily annihilate a life-devouring beast herd, they definitely can't do it so cleanly. There should be some remnants of battle at the very least, but there are no traces of battle here at all. The prodigy of the Man family, Man Yunjun, added as well. Let's not talk about this for now and leave here quickly. Jin Hong gave a stern command as a gleam of light flashed through his eyes. However, just when everyone was prepared to leave, a howl suddenly rang out from behind the group. Chapter 2701. Madness. The howl was extremely ear-piercing in the quiet surroundings, as everyone had been using communication techniques to talk. It rivaled a clap of thunder. What? What is happening? Have we been flanked by life-devouring beasts from behind? At that moment, the hearts of the several dozen prodigies in the cave tightened. First, the numerous life-devouring beasts had vanished from here for some reason. This unexplainable, strange sight made them uneasy, and now that there was a sudden howl, they became even more on edge. They were extremely nervous. Most of the latter half of the group fell into disorder following the howl. Pulses of energy appeared as the sounds of battle followed. Jin Hong's face changed. As a blur, he immediately vanished, flying towards the back as quickly as he could. The other prodigies followed behind him after a moment of hesitation. Jin Hong arrived at the location of the disorder in the group. He just happened to see dark green light appear in the eyes of several sacrificial soldiers as they gave off a chaotic and brutal presence. They attacked the people around them madly. Jia Yunlong, have you lost your mind? Why have you suddenly attacked me? Lu Chengshui, what are you doing? We're good brothers who have been through thick and thin. Why have you suddenly turned against me? Old Zhou, what has happened to you? Why don't you stop? Haven't you forgotten what your status is? You'll be sentenced to death by the young master if you continue like this. Over 20 cultivators who also happened to be sacrificial soldiers were caught off guard and were heavily injured by the sudden attacks. They all stared at their companions in disbelief as they bellowed out furiously and in confusion. The sacrificial soldiers with shining green eyes did not seem to hear them. They produced beast-like roars as they attacked the surrounding cultivators with all their might. On a nearby tree, Jin Hong frowned as he saw this. The light in his eyes flickered as he seemed to be in thought. The other leaders of the organizations all arrived as well. They either stood on trees or hovered in the air, staring at the disorderly sacrificial soldiers in surprise. One of them is from my Chu family. What has happened to him? Chu Yun hovered in the air and looked at the sacrificial soldier from his clan who currently attacked everyone with no regard. Chu Yun's face became rather ugly. Humph, capture these people making trouble, Bai Zhanxiong of the 100 Battle Clan called out coldly, immediately issuing a command. Immediately, all the sacrificial soldiers of the 100 Battle Clan took action. Together, they suppressed the insane sacrificial soldiers very quickly. However, even though the sacrificial soldiers had been immobilized, they showed no intention of settling down. The inky green light in their eyes grew deeper in color as they struggled desperately. As the light shone brighter, they put up an even greater and greater struggle. It was to a level where it was greater than the strength that they were supposed to possess. We're struggling to keep these people down. Quick, send a few more people. One of the sacrificial soldiers holding the people down called out, and a few sacrificial soldiers joined in immediately. In the end, it took 8 sacrificial soldiers to hold down a single person. This was shocking, as these sacrificial soldiers had all been nurtured using 100 Tribulations God King pills. Their strength would all be roughly the same. Normally, just 2 or 3 people would be enough to hold a single person down. However, they required a total of 8 now. This meant that the sacrificial soldiers who had lost their minds were 2 or 3 times more powerful than before. How is this possible? Why have they become like this? Chu Jie was at a loss. He was completely confused. No one answered his question. In reality, many people were confused as to just what had happened here. Jin Hong stared at the shining green eyes of the sacrificial soldiers, and he gradually became stern. Afterward, he seemed to decide on something, and his expression changed abruptly. He immediately called out, "Quick, everyone cloak yourselves with energy and avoid the mist." What? All of this was caused by the mist here? But how is that possible? How is that possible? Isn't this just ordinary mist? How can it have such a strange power? Jin Hong's call shocked all of the prodigies present. They all stared at the mist in disbelief. They were in doubt and suspicion. Even though some of them were still doubtful, all of them immediately cloaked themselves with energy, forcing the mist away from their bodies. The sacrificial soldiers obeyed as well. Immediately, colorful energy erupted from their bodies. The shining energy dyed the surrounding landscape with a variety of colors. However, it was all too late, as around half of the group had believed that Jian Chen was just trying to frighten them with his warnings. They had ignored his recommendation, so they had absorbed a large quantity of mist in the past few days. Now, the issue with the mist had finally erupted completely. Just 5 seconds after Jin Hong's command, more cultivators began to lose their minds among the sacrificial soldiers. They seemed to descend into madness. Dark green light shone in their eyes as they attacked their nearby companions wildly. Like a chain reaction, more and more sacrificial soldiers descended into madness. In that short moment, the total amount increased from a few to several dozen, and then several hundred, followed by several thousand before increasing to over 10,000. In the end, everyone among the sacrificial soldiers who had not cloaked themselves with energy descended into madness. None of them were able to avoid this fate. Immediately, a great battle erupted in the mountains. The insane sacrificial soldiers were no longer able to tell friend from foe, attacking the normal sacrificial soldiers, forcing them to fend for their lives. The group that stretched into the tens of thousands fell into disorder in that moment. They were collapsing from within. Why? Many of the prodigies were stunned by this scene. They were in complete shock and disbelief. Wake up! Oh well! Jin Hong was pale. He immediately transformed into a golden wolf that was 3 meters long, and the blurry figure of the ancient sky wolf appeared behind him. He then let out a deafening wolf's howl that spread far and wide. He attacked to wake up all the sacrificial soldiers that had lost their minds. But it was useless. He Qianqian was pale as well. Even though all the sacrificial soldiers of the Heavenly Crane clan had followed Jian Chen's recommendation, so none of them had lost their minds, this young lady of a peak clan was still rather frightened by what was happening. She saw the sacrificial soldiers of the Heavenly Crane clan fend off the attacks of the insane cultivators and immediately ordered, "People of the Heavenly Crane clan, use the divine formation of the crane's feather immediately." Chapter 2702. The Reign of the Two World Mountains. The divine formation of the crane's feather was a powerful, defensive formation. It could not be used against life-devouring beasts, but it was basically an impenetrable wall against the attacks of cultivators. If several hundred or 1,000 sacrificial soldiers used the formation, they would be combining all of their strength. They could even stop the attacks of a few experts who had just reached infinite prime. People of the Empire Lotus Sword sect, use the Lotus Sword formation immediately. People of the 100 Battle Clan, use the Invincible formation quickly. People of the Sun family, people of the Greenfields clan. Afterwards, the other prodigies all snapped to their senses as well, passing down commands together. Immediately, many powerful defensive formations were quickly erected to block the attacks of the insane cultivators. The attacks of the crazy cultivators finally posed no more threat to the regular sacrificial soldiers. However, in that short amount of time, close to 1,000 sacrificial soldiers had passed away. "We're done for, we're done for. It's over for us. It's all over." Chu Jie and the others were grief-stricken. Blood had drained from their faces completely. Not only had all of their subordinates lost their minds, they themselves had absorbed quite a lot of the grey mist as well. Even though they were unable to find anything wrong with their bodies for now, the fates of the sacrificial soldiers had cast a shadow in their hearts. None of them know when they would become like the insane sacrificial soldiers. Some of the prodigies had already begun wolfing down various pills in an attempt to disperse the mist within them. Having witnessed the sacrificial soldiers descend into madness, they had truly become afraid. They were in fear. What hurt them even more was that the prodigies who had not absorbed any mist due to their energy cloaking had instinctively moved away from them, secretly raising their guard against them. Clearly, they were prepared for their descension into insanity at any time. Even their good friends that they had referred to as brothers before had purposefully backed away from them, afraid of standing too close. "Dandan, don't worry. Nothing will happen to me. I possess a large quantity of pills. The puny mist can't do anything to me," said one of the prodigies to a woman beside him with a pale face. "Xueqi, keep your distance. Don't come near me." A young lady by the name of Dandan screamed and immediately backed away from him, avoiding him like the plague. Xueqi's heart ached. Deep regret filled him. Damn it. If I had known earlier, I would have chosen to believe Yang Yuqian before. I've actually forced myself into a state like this just to save a bit of energy. Damn it, damn it. Xueqi felt utter regret. "Young Master Jin Hong, what do we do now? What should we do with these sacrificial soldiers who've lost control?" The prodigy of the Man family, Man Yunjun, asked sternly. She was a lady who seemed around 20 years of age. She was good-looking and gave off a valiant aura, rather like a person of strong moral character. She was much more outstanding than most of the prodigies present. She was one of the few prodigies who managed to stay composed in the face of this sudden incident. Jin Hong said nothing, as he himself had no idea how to handle this situation. He felt like he was stuck between a rock and a hard place. He had already tried to wake up these insane sacrificial soldiers, but it was impossible. If they tried to suppress them with force, they would clearly need to pay an extravagant price. As a matter of fact, they might not even succeed in doing so. However, if they were supposed to kill all of them, it similarly would be a huge loss and a great hit to their forces. They would not be able to deal with the unknown dangers in 100 Saint City. "We can't leave either seeing how we're pinned down like this. This can't continue. We have to come up with a way to deal with all of this," Ping Yixing of the Empire Lotus Sword sect said grimly. "Our sacrificial soldiers will run out of energy sooner or later, and we still have to deal with the threat of life-devouring beasts in our remaining journey. We can't waste too much energy here," said Lu Yi of the Greenfields clan. "It has already come to this point. We're out of options. Let's kill all the sacrificial soldiers who have lost control," said the prodigy of the Darkness clan. He was shrouded in black robes, obscuring his face and giving off a sense of mysteriousness. He was a quiet person. He maintained an extremely low profile in the group and rarely spoke. However, no one underestimated him, as he was the king of the night. He might not have been the strongest in open battle, but in terms of assassination, he could send chills down the spines of all cultivators at the same level as him. That's a good idea. We need to take action immediately. We've created too great of a disturbance here. If we draw over life-devouring beasts, we'll really be in trouble. If we don't handle it well, all of us will die here, someone added immediately. No, we can't kill them. Our clans have painstakingly raised these sacrificial soldiers. We can't let them die by our own hands. You all understand just how valuable 100 Tribulations God King pills are. If you touch them, the clans behind us will never just turn a blind eye to the whole thing once we leave the world of the fallen beast. They'll definitely demand an explanation, Gong Ruai said shrilly. He objected immediately. He was extremely nervous. At that moment, everyone was faced with a tough dilemma. They were stuck with over 10,000 insane sacrificial soldiers, unable to leave. 100 kilometers away, a huge eagle circled in the air. On its wide back sat Jian Chen. He also frowned. He murmured to himself, "The mist can actually control the minds of god kings. It's even more complicated than I imagined it to be." Jian Chen reached out with one hand, and the space before him warped. Swathes of mist was sucked into his hand, condensing into a thumb-sized bead in the end. He stared at the bead for a long time before even using the senses of his soul. He examined it closely, inspecting every inch of it in an attempt to find the secret hidden in the mist. However, the secret hidden in the mist could not be unraveled so easily. Even with Jian Chen's soul that had mutated after absorbing a strand of chaotic force, he found almost nothing after a close inspection. He did not find any leads to nullifying the mist either. 2 hours later, Jian Chen opened his eyes, and the white bead in his hand transformed back into mist, dispersing in the surroundings. It seems like the cultivators who have lost control are basically hopeless. Jian Chen shook his head and sighed. He had used the senses of his soul to secretly inspect the souls of the insane sacrificial soldiers in the past, which was why he understood just how troublesome the mist was. At the very least, there was nothing he could do to save the sacrificial soldiers with his current abilities. At this moment, a drizzle suddenly descended from the sky, enveloping a range of 100 kilometers. No one paid attention to the rain. They all thought it was just regular rain. Jin Hong and the other prodigies were cloaked in energy as well, so the rain directly bounced off them. They did not even get wet. However, the insane sacrificial soldiers were completely drenched. What no one noticed was that when the rain came into contact with their skin, it actually merged with their bodies quietly, turning into a stream of coolness that fused with their blood, meridians, flesh, and soul. The stream of coolness seemed to be able to purify certain things in the world. Wherever it passed by, the gray mist in the bodies of the sacrificial soldiers would begin to disperse. In just a few seconds, the cultivators who had attacked the defensive formations mindless gradually slowed down. Their movements became duller and duller before actually stopping. The green light in their eyes began to fade, allowing their pupils to recover their normal light. Nearby, the prodigies had just been discussing whether they would kill the mindless sacrificial soldiers or not. They also discovered the strange phenomenon here, so they all looked over, and with that, many of them beamed with joy. Look, they've actually woken up, and the light in their eyes have returned to normal. Fantastic, they've finally come to their senses. Xueqi could not help but cry out as he began to dance in celebration. He was in high spirits. Not only did the recovery of these people indicate that there was a way to deal with the mist, it also meant that the sacrificial soldiers had returned to their control. There was no need for them to lose their subordinates. It's the rain that saved them. The rain can actually subdue the mist. Jin Hong looked at the drizzling sky in surprise. Chapter 2703. A mysterious person Chu Jia, Kong Feiying, Zhao Wenbin, and the other prodigies who had absorbed a large quantity of the mist all became excited. The gloom on their faces was completely swept away, and they howled out in utter joy as if they had been given a second life. They began to gulp down the rain greedily. What did I do just then? I actually attacked my own people. How did I end up doing something like that? The sacrificial soldiers who had returned to their senses were at a loss. They looked at the blood on their hands and recalled everything that they had done earlier. Their faces immediately paled. They were only sacrificial soldiers raised by the clans. They knew the rules of the clans extremely well, so they understood the severity of their earlier crimes. They knew how heavy the consequences would be. Not only would they be destined for death, but even their family and clans would face destruction. Young master, spare me, spare me. I had lost my mind earlier. I had no idea what I was doing at all. Have mercy, young master. I had no choice either. I had completely lost control of myself. The sacrificial soldiers all began to beg and plead. They were not afraid of death because they could only live for another century at most. It was mostly because of the people they were attached to. Some of them had families, wives, or clans. They had only committed themselves to such a reluctant cause because of their circumstances, selling themselves to the peak clans. They trapped themselves in slavery and were raised by the clans as sacrificial soldiers with 100 Tribulations God King pills. Jin Hong glanced past these sacrificial soldiers and hesitated slightly before telling the prodigies. Since they've all recovered, reorganize your groups quickly. We can't stay here. We have to leave as soon as possible. That's right, that's right. Even if there are major matters that we need to attend to, we should put them aside and leave here first. The disturbance earlier was so great that it must have alarmed life-devouring beasts in the distance. There might be a great swarm of them hurrying over here right now. We need to go as quickly as possible. Everyone's hearts tightened when that was mentioned. The prodigies said nothing more and immediately reorganized their groups before hurrying off. However, after the lesson this time, no one dared to save energy anymore. They all cloaked themselves in energy to avoid the mist. 100 kilometers away, Jian Chen stood up on the back of the eagle. He extended his hand towards the direction of the distant group. With that, space immediately distorted and droplets of rain 100 kilometers away were retrieved using the laws of space, condensing into a thumb-sized bead of water that hovered above his hand. Jian Chen's eyes shone as his eyes became piercing. It seemed like he wanted to see through the droplet of water and learn the secrets that it was hiding. However, he found nothing out of the ordinary. It was just normal rainwater. Jian Chen would have never believed that this rainwater could help the sacrificial soldiers recover. According to his understanding, ordinary rain could do nothing to the mist. No, it's not because of the rain, a thought flashed through Jian Chen's head. He could clearly sense that the rainwater he had gathered just now was slightly different from the rain that had helped the sacrificial soldiers return to their senses. They seemed to be two different substances. Jian Chen extended his hand again. In order to get to the bottom of this, he could not care too much. He planned on retrieving the rainwater directly from the sacrificial soldiers. Jian Chen suddenly began to fade. He became transparent, and his figure grew fainter and fainter. In just 5 seconds, he had vanished completely. When he vanished, the eagle beneath him glanced backwards. There was some confusion within its dull eyes because it could sense that Jian Chen was still standing on it, except it could no longer see him. Jian Chen had used the laws of space to meld into the space there. Afterwards, he arrived before a sacrificial soldier 100 kilometers away. He gently brushed the sacrificial soldier's shoulders with his hidden hand, and the rainwater on him immediately vanished, ending up with Jian Chen. However, the moment the rainwater entered Jian Chen's hands, he frowned. After his soul had fused with a strand of true chaotic force, it was no longer the same as before. His senses were exceptionally sharp, allowing him to sense things that even experts stronger than him could not discover. He could clearly tell that the rainwater had undergone a slight change right before it ended up in his hands. It felt like something within the rainwater had suddenly vanished. Just as I had suspected. The thing that made these people recover isn't the rain but something within the rain. The rain is probably just a cover, Jian Chen thought. This discovery shocked him. He could not help but wonder whether the rain had fallen naturally or if someone was behind it all. However, what he did not understand was that if the rain was natural, why would there be such a coincidence? Why did the wondrous substance in the rain suddenly vanish when he wanted to inspect the rain? Moreover, why did it have to use the rain as a cover? However, if this were all man-made, just who would possess the ability to fool his sense in the world of the fallen beast that only allowed those below 1,000 years of age to enter? If it were someone from the Dark Star race, the strongest would only be the Dark Star Emperor. Although he might not be the Dark Star Emperor's opponent if they began fighting, Jian Chen was confident that the Dark Star Emperor would not be able to hide anything from him. At that moment, Jian Chen remained standing where he was, deep in thought. Ideas constantly flashed through his head, and his expression varied as well. Only when the group had long departed the area did he leave, returning to the eagle. After Jian Chen left, an illusionary figure suddenly appeared in the nearby forest. The figure was condensed from the power of the soul. It was only possible to roughly make out the outline of a man. He was slender, but his face was all a blur. The illusionary man hovered in the air and looked in Jian Chen's direction. He seemed to be able to see the figure that had returned to the back of the eagle 100 kilometers away. Jian Chen, this saint has heard about you many times from Heartless. Now that I've seen you, you really might have some exceptional areas. After all, you're able to sense what's up with the rain. However, so what if you can do that? How would a mere infinite prime like you see through my methods when I personally take action? The illusionary man murmured to himself as he stared at Jian Chen. There was admiration in his tone but scorn as well. He seemed to be scornful towards infinite primes, completely looking down on them. As for Jian Chen, he failed to sense anything the entire time. Even when he constantly enveloped the surrounding region with the senses of his soul, even when the illusionary man stood in that range, Jian Chen failed to discover him at all. Afterwards, the illusionary man gazed in the direction of Jin Hong's group again and murmured, "You may be weak, unable to create a single wave in the saint's world, but you have enough strength to be treated with precaution by the Dark Star race. The formations composed of the sacrificial soldiers can even unleash the strength of first or second heavenly layer infinite primes. It's enough to create a storm among the Dark Star race. The great ceremony of the Dark Star race is about to begin. The ceremony cannot succeed. If it were just Jian Chen, I would still be a little worried, but with you, there'll be an even greater chance at disrupting the ceremony." Chapter 2704. A primordial realm life-devouring beast. The man's figure slowly faded away. It was as if he had become a part of the world again. His methods were so strange that no one could sense his existence. 100 kilometers away, the huge eagle circled around at a low altitude. It would sweep past the canopy of trees from time to time and bring about a great gust of wind, stripping leaves from the trees and causing them to be blown about in the air. As a matter of fact, some of the smaller trees were directly uprooted, swept into the air. The vague pressure that belonged to a beast king radiated from the eagle, causing some life-devouring beasts hidden in the forest to flee. Weaker life-devouring beasts lacked self-consciousness and a sense of fear or dread, which was why cultivators could not deter them from attacking. However, the Beast King's presence from the eagle invoked a sense of fear that was embedded in their very bloodline. As a result, wherever the eagle flew by, a mess would occur in the forests below. Many life-devouring beasts would flee into the distance to get away from the eagle. Jian Chen sat on the eagle's back quietly as he continued to ponder. Due to the uniqueness of his soul, he had managed to find something off about the rain. Even though he was unable to confirm anything, he had already begun to suspect that the rain was not natural. Rather, it was likely caused by someone. The rain had been contaminated by some strange substance as well, which could nullify the side effects of the mist. As a result, the sacrificial soldiers recovered. Most importantly, whenever Jian Chen tried to collect the substance in the rain, it would suddenly vanish. Hence, the rain would be reduced to normal rainwater in his hands. Jian Chen refused to believe that the substance was self-conscious and had automatically avoided him. Since that was the case, only one possibility remained. An expert who was far more powerful than Jian Chen was secretly controlling everything. Such a matter would have been nothing surprising if this had happened in the outside world, but this was the world of the fallen beast, a place filled with the supreme will of the grand exalts of the wood spirits and the dark star race. Only outsiders below the age of 1,000 years could enter. Meanwhile, the people of the dark star race were suppressed by the supreme will of the grand exalt from the wood spirits, preventing them from breaking through to chaotic prime. The 9th heavenly layer of infinite prime was the maximum cultivation they could possess in the world of the fallen beast. In such a special miniature world, how was it possible for an expert who could fool his senses to exist? This was a question Jian Chen could not answer. As a result, he was doubtful and very confused at the same time. He refused to believe that a supreme expert who could fool everybody and sneak in here against the wills of the two grand exalts existed. As his understanding of the world of the fallen beast increased, he gained the impression that let alone grand primes, but even sovereigns of the world who had basically become part of the laws of the world would have to endure the wills of the two grand exalts if they wanted to enter here. Even exceptional people on the same level as the two Grand Exalts would have to face this, let alone people below Grand Exalt. Whatever, let's not think about this for now. I need to get out of here as quickly as possible. After that, I need to find a way to save Sacred Feather. Jian Chen exhaled deeply and cleared his head. Roar! Suddenly, the tremendous roar of a beast rang out with the might of a beast king. A huge three-eyed tiger stood proudly on a large rock up ahead, staring at the incoming eagle with hostility. This was another late god king life-devouring beast king. The region here clearly belonged to it. Under Jian Chen's control, the eagle had already intruded upon its territory. The eagle froze up slightly when it saw the tiger, and it could not help but slow down. Deep fear filled its dull eyes. What are you afraid of? Fly over there. Jian Chen slapped the back of the eagle and surging energy appeared, enveloping the entire eagle. Afterwards, the eagle flew towards the tiger helplessly. Jian Chen constantly paid attention to the group behind him. They traveled in a straight path. This was a place where the group had to pass by, so he needed to clear the obstacles in their way so that they could make it out of the Two-World Mountains as soon as possible. As if it had been provoked, the tiger fell into a rage. It let out a deafening roar that reverberated outwards as sound waves, disintegrating all the vegetation within a range of 10 kilometers. Even the rocks that formed the ground cracked. Jian Chen waved his hand, and the space behind him immediately twisted. He had already cast down a spatial barrier in the surroundings to prevent the roar from making it out. Otherwise, the group would definitely hear the tiger's roar. Once they knew there was a life-devouring beast king up ahead, they would surely change directions and waste even more time. At this moment, the third eye on the tiger's forehead suddenly opened. A beam of green light shot over with unbelievable speed. The eagle shuddered violently. It seemed to be familiar with the tiger's third eye. As the green beam shot over, it instinctively tried to turn around and flee. It actually carries the power of the laws of curses. Jian Chen was surprised before suddenly focusing on the incoming beam of light. When he gazed over, the beam of light suddenly froze in the air. No, calling it frozen would be wrong. The beam of light continued onwards, except it moved at a snail-like pace. It was so slow that it seemed like it had halted. This life-devouring beast king is quite powerful, especially that beam of light with the laws of curses. The attack is powerful enough to threaten most supreme prodigies on the God King's throne. No wonder the eagle wanted to flee as soon as it saw it. It seems like the eagle has suffered because of this tiger before, Jian Chen murmured to himself before gently pointing at the tiger. He called out, "Destroy!" With that, the beam of light suddenly collapsed. Subsequently, the tiger itself exploded. At this moment, Jian Chen suddenly frowned and suddenly looked at where the tiger had died. A shadow suddenly rose up from there before gradually condensing into the figure of a huge beast. The beast was also a three-eyed tiger, except it was much larger, like a mountain. Its presence was earth-shaking as well, hundreds of times stronger than the life-devouring beast king. It stared straight at Jian Chen like it wanted to burn Jian Chen's presence into its brain. A primordial realm life-devouring beast. I never thought the life-devouring beast king I just killed had backing. Jian Chen sat on the eagle's back and looked at the huge figure calmly. However, the eagle below him had already begun to tremble in fear. Its wings had stopped working. If it were not for the fact that it was under Jian Chen's control, it probably would have fallen down already. I will come for you. Disperse. Jian Chen looked at the large figure and said calmly. Afterwards, he waved his hand gently, and the figure suddenly collapsed. Chapter 2705, A Clash Between the Powerful, 1. The tremendous figure was not the primordial realm life-devouring beast. Rather, it was something similar to a strand of its soul. As a result, Jian Chen could easily disperse it. With Jian Chen's current strength, very few infinite primes could pose a threat to him. With the life-devouring beast's strength, it would struggle to oppose Jian Chen even if it were personally present, so let alone a strand of its soul. Right after Jian Chen dispersed the figure, an earth-shaking roar suddenly rang out in a dense forest beyond the range of Jian Chen's senses. The terrifying roar shook up the surrounding mountains, causing the ground to crack. It spread out as sound waves, destroying all life within a range of 100 kilometers. Within a cave reinforced by special energy, a huge, shadowy figure flashed and appeared outside. It was an extremely large gray tiger that was a total of 100 meters in length. It also had a third eye at the center of its forehead. The eye was tightly closed such that it only seemed like a slit. The tiger seemed exactly the same as the one Jian Chen had just slain. The only difference was its size and strength. With a single movement, terrifying energy erupted from the tiger's body, and the surroundings boomed. Several mountains collapsed from the energy. Its eyes were filled with fury and hatred as it glared in Jian Chen's direction. Even though it was millions of kilometers away, it still seemed to be able to lock onto Jian Chen's presence with flawless precision. Afterwards, it leapt, resulting in an explosion in the air. The entire space there shuddered and twisted. The infinite prime tiger seemed to smash through space, having vanished already as it traveled towards Jian Chen with speed that did not belong to an infinite prime. It was so fast that it did not take too long to cover the millions of kilometers between them. In just a few seconds, the tiger's tremendous presence appeared within the range of Jian Chen's senses. It basically crossed tens of thousand kilometers at every moment. "I was just about to go look for you, but you've actually come to me instead," Jian Chen murmured to himself when he sensed the tiger's movements. He was completely calm, glancing at the group 100 kilometers away before controlling the eagle to fly towards the tiger without any hesitation at all. He needed to stop the primordial realm life-devouring beast a certain distance from the group. The eagle flapped its wings and flew as quickly as it could. The surrounding space constantly twisted as if it were being folded, allowing the eagle to cover ground over 100 times faster than normal. Elsewhere, the huge group composed of members of the various clans continued to make their way through the dense thicket quickly. All of them were on high alert, ready for any sudden attacks from life-devouring beasts. None of them, including Jin Hong, could sense the primordial realm life-devouring beast currently heading in their direction. This was a beast that was enough to cause them to pale. At the forefront of the group, He Qianqian stood with the other prodigies. She constantly took out the divine hall Jian Chen had handed her. She would check if the strand of soul remained in there so that she could confirm Jian Chen's status. When she sensed that the strand of Jian Chen's soul remained, she could not help but feel relieved. At the very least, she knew that Jian Chen was still alive. However, she soon thought of something and could not help but begin to worry. She thought to herself, "We've already traveled for such a long time. We're nowhere near where we separated anymore. Yang Yutian, are you able to cross such a great distance and catch up to us?" He Qianqian, is the strand of Yang Yutian's soul still there? Suddenly, Jin Hong looked back at He Qianqian and asked her. He Qianqian nodded and said nothing. Jin Hong saw that and could not help but smile. Just as I had suspected. Yang Yutian really isn't a person that could die so easily. I think he should be able to catch up to us easily with his laws of space. It's all because of Yang Yutian's sacrifice that we were able to escape this time. He had selflessly drawn away the life-devouring beast king, so he must be in great danger right now. If I can still see him again once we make it out of the Two-World Mountains, I will definitely thank him properly, said the prodigy of the Empire Lotus Sword sect. Yang Yutian is a man of great character. In order to make enough time for us, he had gone as far as to sacrifice himself and face the late God King life-devouring beast king alone. That alone has filled me with admiration towards him. I must definitely treasure a friend like this, added the prodigy of the Scarlet Light clan, Guang Wanhua. He felt admiration from the bottom of his heart. Many of them were touched by Jian Chen's actions. They all felt that he was the reason why they could escape and that they owed him a huge favor. They were grateful towards him. Of course, not everyone was like that. A few people remained indifferent. From the bottom of their hearts, they looked down on Jian Chen because of his status as an independent cultivator. They all believed that they were superior and matters that involved risk and potential death were supposed to be done by independent cultivators or servants. I think that you're all overestimating Yang Yutian. With his laws of space, he can avoid the life-devouring beast king temporarily. But don't forget that using the power of laws will consume one's power of the soul. Unlike origin energy, power of the soul can't be recovered by absorbing divine crystals. Once the power of his soul is completely depleted, it will probably be his end. Gong Rui's was disgruntled by everyone's praise of Jian Chen because he held resentment towards the latter, so he added coldly. That's right. In my opinion, even if Yang Yutian is still alive, he probably has a foot planted in the grave. He's probably running around the Two-World Mountains like a dog. Let alone seeing him in the future, He'll probably have all of his life force sucked dry by a life-devouring beast just like the dead sacrificial soldiers soon, Xueqi added venomously. Xueqi, shut your mouth. The reason why we were able to escape from the life-devouring beast king was all because of Yang Yutian. He basically saved us. He Qianqian looked at Xueqi furiously with a sunken face. He saved us all? Do you think he has that ability? Xueqi was scornful. At this moment, a tiger's roar rang out from the horizon. Coupled with it were pulses of energy and pressure from who knows how far away. Even though the energy and pressure had become extremely faint after traveling such a great distance, all of the prodigies present were knowledgeable, so they immediately sensed an energy that was beyond godhood cultivators from the pressure. The primordial realm. It's at the primordial realm. Oh no, the pressure comes from the primordial realm. Ping Yixing of the Empire Lotus Sword sect suddenly paled. He had come into contact with many primordial realm experts in his sect. He had an extremely deep impression of the unique presence and energy that primordial realm experts possessed. It's a life-devouring beast. That's the roar of a primordial realm life-devouring beast. There are primordial realm experts fighting in the distance. Immediately, everyone's expressions changed drastically, as they would not be able to put up any resistance against a primordial realm life-devouring beast. The formations of God King sacrificial soldiers would bring about no benefits at all. With the strength of primordial realm life-devouring beasts, their ability to devour life would be so powerful that even if they were several kilometers or several dozen kilometers away, their bodies would still be drained clean in an extremely short amount of time. With the appearance of the primordial realm life-devouring beast, everyone apart from Jin Hong became afraid. However, even Jin Hong became extremely stern. Chapter 2706, A Clash Between the Powerful, 2. By the looks of things, it's a battle between two primordial realm life-devouring beasts. If that's the case, we don't have to worry too much. That's right. Although the senses of primordial realm life-devouring beasts span an extremely wide range, they must devote all of their efforts to the battle since they've encountered an opponent at the same level. It won't be able to discover us from so far away. Some prodigies could tell that something was off from the weak pulses of energy, and they immediately calmed down significantly. This was because they had already determined that the primordial realm life-devouring beast in the distance was unable to pose any threat to them temporarily. They would not have to face off against it. In the intense battle between the two, one side will definitely suffer injuries. Perhaps, both of them will become heavily wounded. Should we go over and check on the situation there? We might be able to benefit unexpectedly. The remains of primordial realm life-devouring beasts are a priceless treasure, said a prodigy as his eyes shone with excitement and greed. When the others heard him, some of their faces immediately darkened. They stared at the person with displeasure. They would not even be able to escape from primordial realm life-devouring beasts, yet there was actually a person reckless enough to want to approach them. Were they tired of living? Of course, not everyone responded in the same manner. The eyes of a few prodigies lit up. They were ready to risk it. That's not a bad idea. Although the devouring abilities of primordial realm life-devouring beasts are extremely powerful, it's limited to a certain range. As long as we remain further away, they won't be able to do anything to us. Moreover, they've met an opponent their equal right now. They're focusing on the battle, so they will have minimal awareness of their surroundings. It'll make it even more difficult for them to discover us. Everyone, think about it. Just how precious are the remains of primordial realm life-devouring beasts? If you add a bit of their remains when refining high-quality God-tier pills, both their efficacy and quality will increase. Once God-tier pills reach high quality, they're already priceless. Hence, I think that all of you understand just how valuable they'll become with even the slightest improvement of efficacy. Risk comes with reward. Before us is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The prodigies who were tempted by the remains of primordial realm life-devouring beasts did their best to convince the group to go hunt down the primordial realm life-devouring beasts. The temptation of the remains was simply too great for them. Although it could not directly increase their strength, bringing back a portion of it would warrant merit so great that they might even be personally rewarded by the ancestor. Their status in the clan would rise accordingly. They were all prodigies from peak clans, but some of them did not possess particularly great status in their clans. They only had some status because one of their ancestors were a great elder. However, there were plenty of people in the younger generation with greater status. As a matter of fact, there were even a few that the ancestor had placed high hopes on. They were superior in both cultivation speed and battle prowess. However, they were older than 1,000 years, which had cost them this opportunity, and allowed others to gain the chance to enter the world of the fallen beast to demonstrate themselves and contribute to the clan. As a result, some of them were unable to resist the temptation of the remains of primordial realm life-devouring beasts. There was a difference in substance that existed between the primordial realm and godhood. No matter how many remains of godhood life-devouring beasts they obtained, it would be nowhere near as valuable as a thumb-sized chunk of remains from the primordial realm. Xueqi also hesitated. Clearly, she was rather tempted. The Heavenly Crane clan was in desperate need of primordial realm life-devouring beast remains. They did not need it for a high-quality god-tier pill. Rather, they required it for a supreme-quality pill that was even greater so that one of their important figures could ingest it. The Crane ancestor still hasn't recovered from his wounds. Ordinary supreme-quality god-tier pills aren't very effective. Only supreme-quality pills with primordial realm life-devouring beast remains might be of some use, as its effects will be amplified, thought Xueqi. She understood that these life-devouring beasts were basically created by the Grand Exalt of the wood spirits. As a result, they contained small fragments of the Grand Exalt's laws. This was a form of life force. It would be extremely useful in pills, enough to breathe life into the old. Young Master Jin Hong, do you think we should risk it? Xueqi looked at Jin Hong. She greatly desired some of the flesh, which could be refined into supreme-quality god-tier pills to help the Crane ancestor heal. Risk it? Humph. I'm certain that if we just try to approach that place, we'll be annihilated. Xueqi, you seem rather level-headed normally, so why have you become muddle-headed now? Jin Hong snorted coldly. He glared at the interested people and said with a sunken voice, "Don't forget, life-devouring beasts aren't cultivators. We might be able to threaten infinite primes that are on the brink of death if we work together, but even if primordial realm life-devouring beasts are close to dying, they'll still be able to suck your life force dry from hundreds of kilometers away. If you want to go ahead, I can promise you that you'll be dead before you can even see the life-devouring beast. That's all I'll say. Make the decision for yourself. If you still want to try, I won't stop you." With that, Jin Hong left with a few people and a large number of sacrificial soldiers. Clearly, he was ready to perform a full retreat, wanting to pull away from the life-devouring beasts. Xueqi looked in the direction of the disturbance reluctantly. She made up her mind and left with the group. As for the other prodigies who were tempted by the remains of primordial realm life-devouring beasts, their eagerness slowly subsided, and they also left reluctantly while filled with regrets. Several hundred kilometers away, Jian Chen and the primordial realm life-devouring beast met halfway. They did not try to communicate with each other. As soon as the life-devouring beast saw Jian Chen, it embroiled in a great battle with him as its eyes burned with hatred. Jian Chen stood in the air, and light flickered around him. He enveloped himself in the light from his laws of the sword such that he seemed like a ball of silver light from afar. His figure was vaguely visible. He hovered in the air, radiating with surging sword chi. He was able to rain sword chi towards the primordial realm life-devouring beast with the slightest movement. Everything in his hands became a sword. The attacks of the life-devouring beast were much simpler. It did not use any battle skills or secret techniques, nor did it understand how to use tricks. Its attacks were clearly rather clumsy. It used its claws and sharp teeth. Although that was the case, it was still of the primordial realm after all. Its body surged with energy. Even though its use of energy was not very skillful, its strength was extremely shocking every time it struck out. Moreover, it constantly gave off a strange suction. The strength of the suction force was shocking, and it especially devoured life force. Even some weaker infinite primes would not be able to keep their life force under control if they faced against it, resulting in it all draining away. This life-devouring beast is roughly at the 3rd heavenly layer of infinite prime, but it'll take a 4th heavenly layer expert at the very least to defeat it. It'll probably be very difficult for anyone below the 3rd heavenly layer to keep their life force under control, Jian Chen thought as he became rather stern. With his current cultivation level, he could vaguely sense that his life force was being drained away as he faced against the life-devouring beast. He could only keep it locked down when he poured all his efforts into defense, utilizing both chaotic force and his laws of the sword. His battle prowess completely exceeded the life-devouring beast. He had even killed 9th Heavenly Layer Infinite Primes in the past with the 9-star Sword of Heavenly Ways. Now that he was without his sword, some of his strength was lost, but he was still an expert among Infinite Primes. However, battle prowess was not equivalent to levels of cultivation or comprehension. His cultivation was only roughly the same as the life-devouring beast before him. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.